Welcome to Scottsdale, Arizona, and the 50th anniversary celebration for the Barrett-Jackson Collector Car Auction. And what a celebration it's going to be here at Westworld. More than 1,800 cars, more than a century of automotive history getting ready to cross the block. You like muscle? Check out this Yenko Camaro. You want resto mods? Here's a perfect 69 Pontiac GTO. And then there's customs, a 1959 Buick nicknamed Blue Suede Shoes. If you prefer pickups, how about this massive Power Wagon? It's a beast. And of course, we also have modern supercars, a McLaren P1 or a Porsche 918. And that's just the beginning of the automotive royalty that will cross the block. And what would any great celebration be without a huge guest list? And that's exactly what we have. As you can see, this place is full. Westworld has been packed since they did the preview days over the weekend, and now, well, there are plenty of bidders on site ready to buy something, that car of their dreams when it crosses the block. Just like they were 50 years ago when Barrett-Jackson held its first auction. But there was one thing missing 50 years ago, and that's the one thing we have up on the block. Two guys who can lead you through every car just like a tour guide. We've got Mike Joy and Steve Magnante.
Thank you, Rick, and hi, everybody. I love Tuesdays at Barrett-Jackson Scottsdale because of the eclectic diversity of the docket. There's a Crosley on the block right now. They just sold a Cushman and an Arctic Cat snowmobile. Who buys snowmobiles in Phoenix? They do at Barrett-Jackson. And that's the fun of it all for us, is to share all of that with you.
You know, it's funny, the first Barrett-Jackson auction in 1972, I was 7 years old and dreaming about, maybe working professionally on a car show. And here we are now, 50 years later. Been a pleasure to do this, but it's going to be a great day today. And one thing that we're going to be doing is giving these cars a voice. The one thing cars don't do is they don't talk. So it's up to us to give them a voice. And, well, let's get it started with this wonderful little Crosley.
It's a 1948 Crosley CC station wagon with a lot of patina and something special under the hood. A Ford flathead V8 mated to a 3-speed transmission.
Well, that's right. These came with the little Cobra copper brazed four-banger, but this is a Ford flathead. This is the Mini, the little 60 series, which was a smaller engine than the 221 239. But this is triple power in this Crosley. It's a bit of a hot rod, bit of a sleeper.
This car is a year older than me, and I sure hope I'm in better shape. But somebody is going to enjoy this at a figure that is probably 10 times what this sold for new. $9,500, Rick.
Yeah, no shortage of patina here at Barrett-Jackson this week. We'll see all kinds of great stuff crossing the block. And once again, that rust seems to be selling, so we can't knock it. All right, time to check in with the next member of our broadcast team, the host of Hoovie's Garage on YouTube. Here's Tyler Hoover.
Well, I found something a little exotic here. Lot 133.1 is a 1973 Lotus Europa. And Lotus, of course, a famous racing team, but they started building cars for the road, and their racing DNA was in this car. Now, they were criticized a little bit for the styling. They called these things bread vans, and you can see from the shape here in the back, it's actually very aerodynamic, but looks a little weird. But you're mostly buying this for the engine. You have a sweet little 4-cylinder twin-cam dual-carb engine that sounds wonderful. These things were going up against Porsche 914s back in the day, and well, I like this one better just because of the engine noise versus the 914s that sound like, well, Volkswagens. But you had a little luggage storage compartment right here, and probably not a good place for luggage just because this thin fiberglass was really hot. So you could probably cook a Thanksgiving turkey on your way to Grandma's with this thing. I would love to own one of these, but unfortunately there's a slight problem when it comes to interior cabin space, and, well, yeah, a little tight.
They didn't design that for Tyler Hoover. All right, thanks a lot. Up on the block right now, we got a 1989 Mercedes-Benz. This one is a 420 SEL.
Well, not to be confused with the 450 SL or 420 SL. This is a four-door, of course, long wheelbase, and there were actually two wheelbases on these. This one is the longer of the two. More of that rear seat area room being the bonus.
Yeah, in the S-Class, the long wheelbase version was preferred, and that's what was mostly sold in the U.S. This one has been well enjoyed. 133,000 miles on the clock. Chrome wheels, white paint. You notice that the bumpers and the rockers are a little different shade of white than the body. That was intentional, that those rubber parts, they didn't try to match the paint on the metal body. It was a shade off on purpose.
$12,500 for that 1989 Mercedes-Benz 420 SEL. All right, we're going to stay in the Mercedes family. Move forward to 2003, and as Steve mentioned, instead of an SEL, this time we've got an SL, an SL 500 Roadster.
Well, this was big in 2003. This was the very first year for this styling cycle, and these SLs tended to be long-lived. This one wears aftermarket wheels, but of course the retractable hardtop, instead of the one that you put off and put in your garage, that retractable hardtop is the main selling version of this iteration of the SL.
These came with 3 possible engines, a V6, yep, or a V8, which we have here, the 4.5 liter, 5 liter, or yeah, there was a V12 version, very long engine bay, capable of accepting a wide variety of engine configurations.
I am not put off or scared by the 98,000 miles that are on the clock of this one, because these Mercedes V8s, these are 150, 175,000 mile engines. So look for maintenance records, and if this thing has been well kept and well maintained, it has a long life ahead of it.
Like the stagger on the wheels, the rears are a little bit wider than the fronts, adds a sort of dynamic tension to the car.
This weekend, we're going to see the full spectrum of Mercedes. We've got this SL 500, and over the weekend, we're going to see coming up on Saturday, a 300 SL, the car that really began this line.
Yes, and we have not only a gull-wing coupe, but a 300 SL Roadster to match.
$20,000 for that 2003 Mercedes-Benz SL 500 Roadster. All right, time to head out to the Maguire staging lane, and the next member of our broadcast team here is April Rose.
Finally, someone came to their senses and mounted an X to the side of their vehicle. This is where it's at. This is a 1971 Volkswagen thing. Now, it was abandoned outside in Arizona for 25 years. Full restoration in 2018. This is no luxuries, okay? All business, 1900cc engine, 4-speed manual trans. That's genuine tan military paint, marine grade audio, Bluetooth, fun canvas top. I mean, I think I need to mount an axe to my truck back home in Chicago, but I don't know if it's street legal. What do you think, DeBrule?
Yeah, I think you can get away with it. Just, maybe you should encase it in glass just in case.
Good idea.
But before you do that, April, Google Lizzie Borden.
Legends can be made. All right, up on the block right now, a 1989 Dodge Dakota. This one, though, pretty special. Look at that name on the windshield. It's a Shelby pickup.
Well, indeed, the Dodge Dakota was a breakthrough vehicle for Dodge. It was a mid-sized pickup between the little Ram and the full-size trucks. But this is something special. 1989 was the one and only year, the first year, for the optional V8. Although it was standard in Shelby editions, not available anywhere else. For 1990, the V8 became optional in all Dakota pickups. But it's kind of cool. It's got the 318 Magnum, something, again, you'll not find in any other 89 Dodge pickup.
Remember that after Carroll Shelby and Ford parted company, Shell linked up with Dodge and created this and a memorable little compact called the Dodge Omni GLH for Goes Like Hell. And then the sequel was the GLHS, Goes Like Hell some more.
The hood graphic on this is asymmetrical. Ironically, that's actually a callback to the Shelby Charger, which had a lump in the hood for the four-banger, but they played it into the V8 truck. It does nothing more than remind you of the Turbo 4 in the front-drive Shelby versions.
Well, $17,500 for a 1989 Dodge Dakota Shelby pickup. And remember that name, Shelby. We're going to see some pretty spectacular Shelbys crossing the block. In fact, they're up there in the Showcase Pavilion. And don't forget, you can watch almost all the cars cross the block on our FYI coverage today, tomorrow, and Thursday. Yeah, that's right. We are on for 6 hours each day. And then on Friday, we're live on the History Channel as well as FYI. And Saturday, we start on FYI and we click over to the History Channel. 38 hours of coverage in total before it's all said and done. So you're going to want yourself a cooler and get some sandwiches. plop yourself down in front of the TV and watch as much as you possibly can, because this anniversary celebration is going to be spectacular. Back here in Scottsdale, Westworld for the Barrett-Jackson Collector Car Auction. And the festivities for this anniversary celebration actually started last weekend. On Saturday morning, the Driven Project, Supercar Therapy. They have 20 kids facing some serious illnesses, all kinds of disabilities, and they each got a chance to ride in one of the supercars and eventually go up across the block as well in Lamborghinis, McLarens, and Ferraris, all part of the Driven Project. And then, of course, you got to cut the ribbon. That's exactly what Craig Jackson did with the mayor of Scottsdale, David Ortega. They had scouts up on the stage getting things going for this 50th anniversary celebration. And boy, what a gala they had. Plenty of people on hand to enjoy the celebration, exactly what they wanted, because once again, the festivities started over the weekend and they'll be going all week long. And of course, the guy at the center of the storm, Craig Jackson, well, he's standing by with our own Christian Murphy.
Well, it is only early in the week here, but already some wonderful moments. We're here with the main men who make it all happen. Craig Jackson, Chairman and CEO, Barrett-Jackson, welcome. Steve Davis, the President. Gentlemen, Craig, already some wonderful moments. What do you think at the end of the week, when it's all said and done, the hobby is going to be saying about this wonderful week?
I think it is going to be epic. The prices that we're already seeing, but the enthusiasm that we saw at the party, everybody finally coming back together. You know, we've done an awful lot of planning to do this in a safe manner, but everybody wants to get back together. And that was what we keep hearing from everybody. 2 years since Scottsdale 2020. The car lineup that Steve has put together is unbelievable. The family day was outstanding. The party was jam-packed, as you just showed this. And from there, it's a moonshot. That's all I can say. We already sold a neon sign this morning for $130,000 on a Tuesday morning. That's an indicator.
It's unbelievable. Steve, of course, we're up and running. We're selling cars. We're off to a good start here. Tell me, today is a day where someone who wants to get into the hobby, this is a good day to have a look at a car, to really get into the hobby. What would you be saying to someone who's looking to make their first collector car hobby?
Well, absolutely, and people don't realize sometimes the Barrett-Jackson experience is for everyone, and we designed the docket particularly for that reason. We want new people coming into the hobby to feel comfortable, not just financially, but it's a situation where they may have all the money in the world, but they really don't want to jump in with a multi-million-dollar hypercar right now. So again, there's a lot of great blank canvases out there that somebody can buy, pickup trucks. We even see the snowmobile earlier this morning. So there's literally something for everybody. But if you're going to get into the hobby and you're going to have fun and you want to buy your first collector car, set a budget and buy the best car you can buy for that amount of money. And that's really true across the board, whether it's a muscle car, a European sports car, a custom, a classic. Again, buy what you like, spend as much money as you feel comfortable with, but buy the nicest example as you can to start with, because it takes a lot of time and a lot of money to make these cars look like what you're going to see rolling over the block on Saturday.
Well, that's great advice for someone who really does know. I think you get a sense here when you're at Barrett-Jackson of that wonderful sense of community here, right, Craig?
Absolutely, it is. This is a hobby. It started as a hobby for my parents. It is Steve and I's hobby. We're inflicted with the same thing as our customers. You know, we have the same problem. We buy a building and we fill it up and we need another one because we love this stuff, but it's the camaraderie, and that's what the party is all about. Everybody was so excited to see everybody again. You see people seeing each other here for the first time. A lot of people just emotional. It's been a tough 2 years, but we're here and it's going to be amazing.
Well, I think we're all set up for a wonderful celebration of the hobby. The community is coming back together. Gentlemen, I don't want to hold you back from what's happening up there. Wonderful to see you. We'll check in back at the end of the day. Back to you guys up on the block.
All right, thanks a lot, Murph. And up on the block right now, we got a 1974 Corvette Stingray, but this one's a custom. When you first look at it, you're not quite sure what it is.
So this is a C3 Corvette, as you can tell here from this sweep back here of the basket handle and the T-tops. If you ever wondered what one of these would look like with a 2006 C6 front and rear, narrowed up and put on this body, well, here it is.
Indeed, the Corvette's always sort of been the blank slate for customizers, and most folks will put aftermarket parts on a Corvette, but this one's basically an all-in-the-family C3 meets C6. And speaking of C6, the center exhaust system coming out there, we can see those two pipes coming out, that's C6 stuff. So I'm going to bet there's probably more C6 going on under the body than meets the eye. This is an original 350 automatic car, and apparently the original 350 is still in place.
So does this look better than it was born? I have to say yes. I couldn't imagine doing this, but I like what they've done here.
It's been interesting because over the years we've seen an awful lot of older Corvettes get new components underneath the stuff you can't see. And in this case, they put the new stuff on the top.
And the beauty of the Corvette is that it has a fiberglass body, which, unlike a steel-bodied car, which requires welding skills, well, if you can mix up some resin and do good body work, you can become a customizer without any heat or expensive equipment or tools. So, customers, again, are a great blank slate for folks to get busy on, like we have here.
Well, and the key is, are there two bidders in the house or over the phone or on the internet that really love this look? So far, so good.
It has the stock Corvette gas tank location up top like that. Carbon fiber applique, and also on the hood, carbon fiber applique onto the domed custom Corvette hood.
And you always wonder, how did this start? What was it that whoever built this made them think this is what I'm going to do? Did he have the parts available, or was this just something he dreamed of from the very beginning? $25,000 for that 1974 Corvette Stingray Custom, done to look like a modern Corvette. Let's check in with April Rose.
This is the third generation 1965 Cadillac DeVille, and in 65 they stacked the headlights. Now, why did they do that? Well, to make room for this massive grille. Look at all that chrome, and of course 18.5 feet long. You got another massive 429 engine in there, 4-speed automatic. Come on, I know it's going to take a while to get back here, but I want you to see these fins, because Cadillacs, they're known for their fins. This is the first year that they sort of disappeared into this back fender here. Metallic pink over white, beautiful. But DeBrule, I want to know, would you be able to parallel park her on the first try? Be honest.
Yeah, if I had about 20 feet on the front and 20 feet on the back, I think I might be able to pull it off. Yeah, that brings a new meaning to the word and term land yacht. Up on the block right now, a 1932 Ford Highboy Custom Roadster.
It is an aftermarket piece, fiberglass body, aftermarket frame. Does have the transverse leaf spring up front, which is a stock Ford engineering item, but again, the chrome plating on this. Something I want to point out is the Toyo Proxys tires. These are very, very cool. The tread pattern on that is DOT approved, but it's nice that Toyo stepped up and designed a custom tire, of which the tread pattern is part of the function. And this is the kind of tire you want to use on an open wheel car like this. It just adds an extra degree of detail. Cool.
402 cubic inches under hood and plenty of power. This thing probably weighs about 1,500 to 1,800 pounds, so plenty of power to turn those Toyos over. And not a lot of creature comforts in these. You need to be kind of short-legged because the cockpit just doesn't have a whole lot of room in these Roadsters.
That is a big block Chevy with dual Edelbrock 4-barrel carburetors. Nice to see the aluminum cylinder heads in place on that. These are Edelbrock Performance Series heads, but again, big block power. To your point, Mike, this thing has the power of a big block Corvette, the weight of a Vega or less. Going to be a lot of fun.
Steve, let's talk Highboy. What are they talking about?
That's reference to where the frame is visible from the side of the car. The body is mounted up top. A lot of customizers would channel the body, drop it down lower for a sleeker profile, but it covered the sides of the frame rail. So a Highboy, you can see the frame. Lowboy, you cannot see the frame.
$31,000, and that makes that particular hot rod the #1 seller of the day, and I believe that one sold over the internet. Away it goes, and we're going to take a break as well. Another beautiful day here in Scottsdale, both inside and outside. Plenty of cars and plenty of people all going through the Westworld facility. Remember, this place just goes on forever. We're here in a permanent building, but there's a mile's worth of tents. And then, of course, there's all the tents down below. 1,800 cars, more than that will be crossing the block, all at no reserve. Like the one we have up there right now, a 1972 Volkswagen Beetle convertible.
Custom paint on this one. The side panel is reminiscent of the Hebmuller, which was sort of a customized car, the two-tone paneling. But again, this is sort of a custom. One thing we do see is the wide hood, which is indicative of the Super Beetle, with McPherson strut front suspension versus the torsion bars seen on lesser Beetles. The internal hood release, so we can't show you that. But when you see the wide hood, you're talking McPherson struts.
This one's been upgraded. It has a 1600cc engine, but with dual carburetors. So a little more power than the Slug Bug that it was born as. And fully restored, frame-off restoration here.
And these convertible or cabriolet bodies were made by Karmann, not the Wolfsburg plant, which made the Beetle bodies. And again, production on these things was a fraction of what it was for the hard-top coupe Beetle. Let's take a peek at that engine. And there she blows, the magnesium case flat 4.
Yeah, we see a lot of these two-tone Beetles crossing the block. And early on, I believe, with some of the cabriolets, you could get it as an option. But the reality is, when this was built, there was no option. They were all one-tone. This is just a custom paint job. $19,500. That's the price for that 1972 Volkswagen Beetle. Let's check in with Tyler Hoover.
Now, lot 144.1 is something really special. It's a 1964 Lincoln Continental that was owned by Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. They reportedly put over 100,000 miles on this car, and it's left as is, as they had it. It was in the museum for several decades, but you can see a funny story with this one. It started its life, Roy, in pale blue, and a few years into their ownership, they decided to change the color. They wanted it to be tan to match Trigger, their horse. Unfortunately, they trusted their friend who was colorblind to pick the color, and he went with canary yellow, which is what it has today, a quick paint job in yellow, but it's all original. One cool thing I noticed here on the back, though, is it was fitted with a trailer hitch, and the ball looks pretty well used, so I wonder if they pulled trigger with this thing. A lot of miles, so probably true.
Well, I'm just hoping they pulled a trailer with trigger in it, which is probably a little better, safer way to go. All right, thanks a lot. Appreciate that, Tyler. Up on the block right now, a 1995 Jaguar XJS.
Boy, beautiful long-distance touring cars. These were V12 power, very, very smooth engine, overdrive automatic transmission, a lot of pace. No good for the stoplight Grand Prix, but if you want to drive long distances in comfort with handling, well, here you are.
Yeah, this body style arrived, I believe, in 1971, initially as the hardtop of the coupe with the flying buttresses, which sort of were sails built in here. One thing you won't find on the convertible is the twin gas tanks. On the coupes, there's a cap on each side for the twin tanks versus on the cabriolet on one side only. But again, nice preservation on this one.
Sadly, the hood's closed, or we would show you a plumber's nightmare of fuel lines and emission lines, and oh my gosh.
And I think ultimately that's what kind of kept some of the value of the XJS down. I think people are simply afraid to work on them. But like you mentioned, they're great cruising cars. My buddy Danny Martino has been addicted to these things. He just loves them, loves the way they cruise and drive. And he says you just can't equal it.
You know, maintenance is important, especially with the radiator and the cooling system. Stay on top of that and you're okay, but when the radiator starts to, well, lose efficiencies, these overheat, blow head gaskets, and that becomes the problem. But maintenance, they're good.
$19,500 for that 1995 Jaguar XJS. All right, we have a thing on the block, the one that April previewed for us just a little while ago, a 1971 Thing convertible.
Well, officially this was the Type 181 Volkswagen, and the party trick in trivia is that the doors, 4 of them, are identical, front to back. Of course, you can remove them, and this one's been given the full safari treatment. But this was Volkswagen's Jeep, and it did the job very well.
Indeed, these have a similar suspension to the Beetle. Below, we'll see transverse torsion bars inside of tubes, and the axle on this is canted down to give it more ride height. But the same basic architecture is found under a Beetle with a little heavier duty. At the rear, the same type swing axles articulated in the center. Let's have a peek at that flat 4 engine, which by this point in time was a little larger. That's the Mikuni aftermarket 2-barrel carburetor in place. Very tidy.
Yeah, people assume that this is essentially a Volkswagen Beetle with a different body, but in reality, this has the Karmann Ghia chassis underneath it.
Can't forget, this is based on the Kubelwagen, which is Germany's equivalent of the American Jeep, World War II.
And depending upon where you bought them in the world, they had different names. In the United States, we called it the Thing. You know, it was also the Safari, the Trekker. It just depended upon where you bought it, what it was named.
People bought them because these were Spartan, inexpensive, and just reliable as all get out.
And they've been popular here at Barrett-Jackson. And look at the bid on this one. We're up to $28,000, closing in on that #1 sale today. Right now, that's that Ford Highboy Custom Roadster we saw sell just a little while ago for $31,000. Not quite. It almost makes it $30,000, the final price for a 1971 Volkswagen Thing. All right, in just a moment, check this car out that'll be crossing the block. A 1997 Camaro Z28, an SS convertible. This one built for the 30th birthday of the Camaro, one of only 957 designed this way. We'll be right back.
Well, I love MGBs, and this is the last year for the chrome bumpers, 1974. This one with a Weber carburetor upgrade, wire wheels, chrome wire wheels, very nice bodywork in jet black. And two bidders just fought this out to the jaw-dropping price of $35,000.
Now Mike's wishing he had a few more of those and not just the Sprigget collection he's got. $16,000. That's the price for a 1987 Jeep Wrangler that just crossed the block, a custom SUV. Behind it, got a little Cobra action, a 1998 Ford Mustang Cobra SVT, and it's a convertible.
Well, don't confuse this with a Mustang GT, which at this point in time would have had a single overhead cam 4.6. When you see the bump in the hood and the Mach 1-esque scoops, you talking 4-valve 4-cam 4.6 and 305 horsepower, which may not sound like a lot today, but in 1998 was a big, big deal. These are great little engines. They're built by hand on a thing called the Ford Romeo Michigan niche line. And when the hood's open, which it's not now, you can actually see the names of the two people who built it. These are hand-signed engines. These are all 6-speed manual equipped, no automatics with the 4-valve 4-cam Cobra, but this is a very special car.
This one's been well enjoyed, Steve, but not too much. 43,000 actual miles, according to the consignor's information, and very nicely kept at that.
A unique detail seen only on the SVTs is the white motorsport gauges with a 160-mile-an-hour max, and on a tachometer, almost 7,000 RPM. And yeah, that little overhead cam, 4.6, 4-valve, will spin darn near $7,000. These are great little engines. Great little big engines, I guess you might say. Now this version of the Mustang is the SN94, an evolution of the Fox. Still has a beam axle at the back, but that's okay. These also grew to have 5 wheel studs, 5 lug nuts as it were, whereas the Fox Mustang had 4 lugs, except for on the SVOs, but these are pretty much when Mustang really grew up. The SVD logo on the back. The deck lid here, Special Vehicles Team, an evolution of the SVO, Special Vehicles Operations, of the 1980s. But SVT, when you saw that, it was like, well, an RT on a Dodge or an SS on a Chevy. And to this day, it still means performance.
That's final price, $23,500 for a 1965 Cadillac DeVille. Pardon me, for that Ford Mustang Cobra SVT. All right, time to check in with Christian Murphy.
Thanks very much, Rick. You know, when I was a young bloke, a doctor friend of my father's bought a 911 SC Targa, and I've always been in love with the Porsche brand. Of course, this vehicle, Lot 148, well, it's not that classic vintage Porsche that we love and know. It is a 2001 Porsche 911 Carrera Cabriolet. But I was absolutely really surprised to see this in the staging lanes here on a Tuesday. This is a wonderful vehicle. It's had the roof here upgraded. It has the Tiptronic paddles there on the steering wheel. It's a 3.4 flat 6. This is in wonderful condition, and as Steve Davis was saying earlier on, this is the opportunity to get into the hobby, you know, the collector car community. And this, well, I'll be really surprised to see what this makes, and I may even just put a bid on this. This is a wonderful example of this vehicle and probably a great, easy way to get into the hobby.
All right, guys, got a bidder pass. Look out. Up on the block right now, a 1965 Cadillac DeVille convertible, the one that April previewed just a little while ago.
Wonderful, wonderful boulevard cars, and they're just like...
Well, this one is lightly modified. Yeah, this has the 429 cubic inch V8. This is the original engine in this car. Don't confuse this 429 with the Ford 429. They share only cubic inch displacement. So dual exhaust on this one is something that was not put there by the factory, but with that said, it's an oftenly included detail, adds a little power. But 1961 was the final year for factory dual exhaust on Cadillacs until you get into the late 1980s when Cadillac rediscovered horsepower and performance and image.
Lot number 133.1, description changes, signature printed pocket.
Cadillac DeVille just sold for $32,000. Almost 19 feet long. Yeah, indeed, it is a land yacht. Well, behind it, this is the car that Tyler Hoover was previewing just a little while ago. It's a 1973 Lotus Europa. Now, this is the second generation, if you want to call it, the twin cam. They also had an S1 and an S2, but this is when it really made significant changes. This is when they put in the twin
with
cam
a Lotus
engine.
designed twin cam head. The Ford Cortina Lotus, which is a steel-bodied economy car, shared this engine.
Of course, Colin Chapman, well known for the fact that he made these things as light as humanly possible. The goal was to make them so light that they fell apart and then start adding a little
twin
strength
cam
back in.
Ford
That's exactly
based
what
engine,
they did
couple
with
of
this. They're
side
not
draft
easy
Weber
to restore.
carburetors. Batteries located here in the back.
Restore these.
Better weight
They're
distribution.
Absolutely beautiful in their design. And as we mentioned, this is that next generation, the twin cam. The originals were called the bread van because of the way the sides came down, but they were so difficult to see out of that eventually they decided that they had to change and drop that sill just a little bit.
Don't miss the opportunity here in this 1973 Lotus Europa. Very, very cool car. It's a California blue plate car.
All right, only up to
Let's take a
16,000.
peek at that four-cylinder engine one more time. And there it is. Pretty cool. This is chain-driven. Excuse me, there's belts driving the twin cams on top of this. And it says big valve on top of that. There are a couple of versions of this. This one has the larger intake valves. Better breathing, a little more power.
Thank you.
And away it goes, $16,500 for that Lotus Europa.
1990 Mercedes-Benz 300 SE sedan. It is finished in black.
Rolling up behind it, we got a 1990 Mercedes-Benz 300 SE that's up on the block right now.
coupled with a 4-speed
Finished in black over beige. It's got a 170 horsepower V6 engine and a 4-speed automatic transmission.
Full-size Mercedes-Benz Autobahn Cruiser. The 300 indicates the 3-liter inline 6. I love the details. The wipers for the headlamps here. A little detail that makes it a little safer when you're cruising along at 140 miles per hour on the Autobahn. The wheels here are the original, correct factory-applied sort of gray finish. The chrome wheels are classic dealer add-ons, but this is how these were built at the factory.
This 300 SE sedan is equipped with ABS brakes, climate control, cruise control, power seats, power windows, power locks, all coupled under that 1990 Mercedes-Benz 300 SE sedan. 18.5, 19 you're out for 19,000.
These have independent rear suspension, of course, unlike a lot of American cars of this period of time, Cadillacs, etc., which would have had a beam axle in the back, but again, independent rear suspension for an excellent ride and good handling.
Away it goes, $19,000 for that 1990 Mercedes-Benz 300 SE sedan. They'll write the price on the sold sticker. Away it goes. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll come right back to Barrett-Jackson. Welcome back to Scottsdale, the Barrett-Jackson Collector Car Auction. Up on the block right now, a 2005 GMC Sierra 1500, but this one's a custom pickup truck.
Well, it's got the usual lift kit, which you might expect to find, and fortunately, these have leaf springs, which makes them pretty easy to lift. You can see lift blocks between the axle housing pad and the leaf spring. And up front, these are a little more difficult. These have independent front suspension, but this has an anchor point lift situation and longer torsion bar. So, you know, pretty cool piece. Looks very intimidating.
Truck looks like it's been pretty well worked, too. This is a cab and a half, and black interior, and that's the exterior, and away it goes.
Way it goes at $20,000 for that 2005 GMC Sierra 1500 Custom. Well, if you'd like to try and sharpen your bidding schools and perhaps snag a great prize in the process, you want to play Fantasy Bid, brought to you by Dodge. Go to BarrettJacksonFantasyBid.com to register and play. We'll try to predict the winning bid of select auction vehicles that are going to be crossing the block this Saturday. The winner of Scottsdale will receive a 3-day Radford driving school. And if you play the game across all 4 Barrett-Jackson auctions this year, you will have the chance to win the grand prize, a 2022 Dodge Challenger. Now, time is running out, so make sure you register for Fantasy Bid, brought to you by Dodge. Back on the block right now, a 1964 Buick Riviera Custom Coupe.
Well, heavily customized and resto-modded, but the Riviera was GM styling chiefs Bill Mitchell's invention of the personal luxury coupe. And a bit of trivia, the Riviera was one of 4 cars, along with a Jaguar and Mercedes sports car, and I think a T-Bird, that were part of the original HO scale Aurora model motoring, what became slot cars in the U.S.
Indeed they were, yeah, 1/64 scale. They were plastic. This is steel. And one thing that's kind of neat about this is that the paint on this is actually paint. It looks like it's been taken down to bare metal with sort of a guide coat of primer, but I like it. It almost has a sterling silver with a little bit of patina added. But up front, the wheels will show us in the middle the aluminum drum brakes, which were a Buick feature. These aluminum fins, that was seen on the fronts of Buicks between 1959 and 69. The best brakes in the business when it comes to drums on a full-size American car at this point in time. The clamshell headlamps would appear for 1 year only, 1965, but 63 and 4, the headlamps are here. But for a lot of folks, the relocation for 65 of the headlamps here is the pinnacle. But again, they're cool any old way.
I'll tell you what, that's a pretty cool car for $15,000 for that 1964 Buick Riviera Custom. Away it goes. We're going to check in with April Rose.
This is the first Corvette planned as a special edition. It's the 25th anniversary 1978 Corvette. Now, all of them had this unique silver metallic with charcoal silver underneath. 17 individual graphics package on here. So you got the stripes, you got these side decals over the T-tops right here, and I really love what they did in 78. They added this wraparound rear glass, really beautiful, the original 350 engine, 3-speed automatic, and of course you got the 25th anniversary emblem back here, just finishing it off. I'd love to see that. DeBrule?
All right, that'll be up on the block very soon. Meanwhile, another pickup truck, this one from 2005, another 1500 Custom.
All right, how big is too big? A lot of cars now come with 16-inch wheels, 17s, 18s, 20s, 21s. These hoops are 26 inches in diameter with these little skinny rubber band tires. I just can't imagine the ride quality that you get from these, but gosh, they look good.
This one does have the classic 6-inch lift kit out back, lift blocks up front, and a lot of folks don't realize these have torsion bar front suspension, not leaf springs, not coil springs, up front we're talking, and kind of an interesting detail. Not all Mopar, Mopars aren't the only cars or vehicles with torsion bars. And keep in mind, General Motors in the early 60s, their pickup trucks also had torsion bars on the two-wheel drivers, but this is the beam axle at the rear, and that's the big 8.5-inch corporate rear axle. Notice how the shock absorbers are staggered, the driver's sides at the back, passengers up front. That helps to tame axle hop through jounce and rebound balancing.
Now, state laws vary greatly. In North Carolina, where I live, we see a lot of trucks like this lifted with the tires outboard of the fender. In Connecticut, where I grew up, if you look straight down, the fender had to completely cover the width of the tire. So before you do this, check the laws in the state where you plan to register it.
$21,500 for the 2005 Chevrolet 1500 Custom with the really, really big wheels. He'll sign the paperwork. That is the Salon Collection. Beautiful cars that'll all be crossed in the block during the course of this auction. Welcome back to the Barrett-Jackson Collector Car Auction. Did we mention it's the 50th anniversary? That's right. They first sold cars here 50 years ago. Not at this site, but here in Scottsdale. Now 50 years later, they're still crossed the block. Up there right now, we've got a 1986 Nissan 300ZX.
Third generation for the Z, and these have become Boulevard-style GT cars. Full leather, cruise control, power steering, power brakes, power seats, power locks, power mirrors, everything but power driver. And oh yes, this one has an automatic transmission, a far cry from the Z that was born back in 1970.
That's right. These were built between 1983 and 89, and this is a turbo, and we know that besides the rocker panel logos, this has 16-inch wheels versus the 15s found on a non-turbo. But something kind of neat, the automatic transmission, we'll see that on the shift handle itself, there's a little black button for the overdrive. This is when overdrive transmissions were so new, there was an add-on unit behind the standard 3-speed. Eventually, the overdrive be built in, but there it is right there, the very beginnings of fuel-saving overdrive. You had to engage it yourself.
$12,500, the final price for that 1986 Nissan 300ZX. All right, let's head over to the Road and Track Midway and Tyler Hoover.
Well, Lot 146 is something you probably see every day on the road, but not like this. It is a 2000 Toyota Land Cruiser with only 34,000 original miles. It is in great condition, and they have been exploding in collectability lately. I had one that had 350,000 miles on it, and I actually drove it through water up to almost here. I had a snorkel. It got all over the inside. I kind of ruined it, which would be a shame if you did it to this one, because look inside of this thing. I mean, it looks like it came off the showroom floor. in Toyota in 2000. And the story is this thing was sold originally in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. It has snow tires on it, so maybe it was kept in somebody's ski house up in the mountains. I mean, it's just so well preserved, and I think it'll really surprise people on the block when it sells.
Okay, Tyler, can you kind of ruin something, or did you just ruin it? That's what I want to know.
Well, there was definitely a smell that I could not get rid of, unfortunately, and I sold it.
Smart move. Up on the block right now, a 1962 Corvair Monza convertible.
Well, the Corvair launched in 1960, or actually late 59, but 62 was the first year you could get a convertible, and here it is. This one has a 4-speed manual, which was a $64 option over the 3-speed base transmission.
Monza 900 is the model, and you see the cross flags here. This one had a dual carb engine feeding the flat 6. Now, aside from the handling and Ralph Nader, the problem with these cars, especially in the Northeast or Northwest in the winter, was that there were air boxes surrounding the exhaust manifolds to push hot air into the compartment to warm the occupants. But these engines leaked oil, especially around the pushrod tubes, and so things got a little smoky and oily in there. This one has had those tubes replaced, so hopefully no issues.
Now, these were air-cooled cars, but apparently consumer clinics, well, folks were kind of put off by the bland face, so GM kind of whipped up these faux air vents for a radiator, but in fact, these do not have a radiator. Of course, they're air-cooled, but that's something you'll find on 62s and some 63s.
Now, isn't that funny? Corvair went from a no-grill face to fake grills. Tesla went from a fake grill to a no-grill face for their cars.
You know, it's pretty amazing to think in the late 50s when they were building those big, huge Chevrolets, at the same time, they were working on this. And how radically different when you compare the 1960 Impala to this. $13,500 for a 1962 Corvair Monza convertible. Don't forget, go to Barrett-Jackson.com. That's where you can see the entire list of the 1,800 plus cars that'll be crossing the block. You can go through and pick ones that you want to see as they go across. Maybe predict what they're going to cost. Just play a little game with yourself. It's a lot of fun. Up on the block right now, a 1995 Monte Carlo. This one is a Brickyard 400 pace car.
Well, this is the, we call this the pace car edition. These were the cars that were built to mimic the actual pace car and then be sold by Chevrolet dealers. They made 400 of these, several of which have crossed the block at Barrett-Jackson. They might have been used for parade duty or sent straight to the dealer. I think this is the first one we've had on the block where the owner did not claim that this was the car given to Jeff Gordon after winning that race. We've heard that story several times. But, Steve, this looks almost new in the wrapper.
It does. You know, speaking of first car, this is the first year for the front-wheel drive Monte Carlo. After a 7-year absence from 1988 onward, when there was no Monte Carlo, well, this is what we got. A lot of dealers didn't like this. The styling on these was kind of controversial. This one here, being a Z34, does have the 3.1-liter overhead cam, or dual overhead cam V6, kind of a hot rod engine. The standard LS would have a push rod V6. So this is actually kind of a performer, but it's front-wheel drive, and it took a while for people to embrace these.
Now, if you've been car shopping lately, what car can you buy with only 1,700 miles on the clock for only $17,000? You look at it that way, this is a bargain.
Yeah, the used car market through the roof right now, and this is a nice used car. Look at how many miles you've got on the odometer. 1995, it's got that Brickyard 400. No, absolutely great.
These eventually would have V8 power. There's a 5.3-liter Monte Carlo SS, and yes, a front-wheel drive Monte Carlo SS. Kind of a rare bird, only available in the final few years. But this is kind of a hot rod, 215 horsepower. The base V6 had 160, so these were fairly potent little cars when they were new. Still have drum brakes at the back, so again, the high technology standard equipment buzz we have going on now, we're still creeping up. Drums are kind of old school, and we got them here in the back.
Thank you.
And the Summit Racing sold sticker goes on for the price $17,000. And that's a great thing here at Barrett-Jackson. Once that sold sticker is on, you walk around and you can see all of the cars with that sticker and know what they sold for. So not only do you see them as they're about to cross the block, afterward you go, okay, that's sold. It's still here usually for much of the week, and you know what it's sold for, so you don't even have to look it up. Up on the block now, a 1978 Corvette. This is the one that April previewed for us. It's a 25th anniversary edition.
The Chevy Corvette debuted in 1953, and all of the 78s wear this special one-year only emblem, and some wear this very distinctive silver over gray two-tone anniversary paint job. Unfortunately, this was the start of the Malaise era, and that small block V8 underhood had less than 200 horsepower.
That's right, 185, but 78 was the first year for the curvaceous wraparound rear window, which wasn't functional until you get into the 1982 model year when you had the collector's edition. But again, the beginning of the fastback styling. Before this, we had the flying buttress situation. Now, these were also available as the Indy Pace cars. This is not that. This is a L-code car, base 350.
I think the belt line right down the center of the car that splits the silver from the gray. Very, very effective here, especially with the burgundy interior. This one with an automatic transmission, as most Corvettes were by the late 70s.
You know, it's interesting because we actually see a fairly large number of 25th anniversary edition Indy Pace cars go across the block, the Pace Car Edition. It's interesting, we don't see many of these that aren't Pace Car Edition, so it's nice, it's different for us.
That's right, there were 6,502 of those Pace Car editions, and they had a very similar charcoal and almost black paint scheme. This is actually just a factory two-tone, but it plays into the look, and I'm sure that was not a coincidence, but not to be confused with an actual Pace car, but still a fun little car. Like all Corvettes of this time, it does have the T-tops, although the see-through translucent ones were extra cost. These are the standard body-colored solid ones.
I had the same engine in the 78 Z28 that I ordered new, and geared right, it had a 373 rear. It would still have decent acceleration and, of course, exceptional handling. So that 185 horsepower, not such a horrible figure given the times.
It was frustrating, though, because the cars looked cool. They just couldn't match it in terms of performance. All right, the way it goes, we're going to take a quick break here at Barrett-Jackson. And we got plenty of horsepower here in Scottsdale, both out in the plains and under the hood.
The Barrett-Jackson organization has always showed me and the world what a class act should be. The vehicles, the vendors, the entire experience is amazing. When the auctioneer starts, you can feel the pulse of the crowd start to build up and the excitement start to get everybody hooked on the auction. So congratulations from myself to the Barrett-Jackson family for 50 years of truly being the world's greatest classic car auction.
And our buddy Dave Kindig will be back this week. In fact, he has 4 cars rolling across the auction block on Saturday as part of the 50th anniversary celebration here at Barrett-Jackson in Scottsdale. Up on the block right now, a 1969 Chevy C10 Custom.
Well, kind of neat, short bed, 6.5 footer, but something cool here is the optional spare tire external mount right here on the step side. Only about 11% of these built in 69 had that. Kind of cool.
$26,000, the price for that one. And the gentleman showing his bidder's pass. He'll get to sign the paperwork. And up on the block behind it, this is a car we previewed just a little while ago, a 1997 Camaro Z28, an SS convertible.
Well, these were rare. They were done not in the aftermarket, but by a contractor for Chevrolet. And if you want a Gen 4 Z28, you want this one. 5.7 liter, tuned injection. Got the houndstooth interior, the white with the orange Indy Pace car stripes. Less than 300 of these were built, and this one is a 6-speed. This is the one you want.
That's right, kind of. I will say, Mike, 97 was the final year for the LT1. 98 brought the LS1 with the aluminum block, the lighter heads. But again, this engine was actually swapped out at SLP, which is Street Legal Performance. This is the engine from a 1996 LT4 Corvette. So these actually went to SLP with a 275 horsepower LT1. That was removed, and then a crate Corvette motor went in. So technically the numbers don't match, but that doesn't really matter. But these are cool cars again. But 1 year later, the LS1 would arrive.
So in 1997, at your local Chevrolet dealer, you would have spent $28,800 for the privilege of driving this one home.
Mike, the difference between this and a Z28 convertible is the SS package, which was RPO R7T. So $3,999 was the price of the trip to SLP for the engine transplant and the SS graphics. But again, these are absolutely collectible. I love that this one's stock, hasn't been modified.
Yeah, and it's only got 41,000 miles on the odometer. Pretty impressive all the way around.
Of course, standard four-wheel disc brakes, and the SS specific plastic hood with the NACA-style duct coming down the middle. Kind of looks like an AAR CUDA item, if you ask me, from 1970, but just a great styling touch.
Yeah, in all, they built almost 1,000 of the anniversary editions, but only about 250 or so were the convertible version, so it is pretty rare.
Well, I'm corrected. That 28,000 figure I gave you was the MSRP. Then the car went to SLP, and the modifications that were done to it added another $6,500 to the sticker price.
And for all you SLP fanatics, Ed Hamburger was the founder of Street Legal Performance, and Ed Hamburger had a previous life as a Mopar Superstock drag racer.
$28,000 for that gentleman right there. Congratulations, fist bumps all around, and away it goes. And away we're going to go and check in with April Rose.
I found something I've really fallen in love with. Check this out, a 1966 Unimog. I mean, look at that ground clearance and that height visibility. I mean, man, you can see the road for miles in one of these. Now, Mercedes started making them in 1951. She's got a 2.2 inline six-speed manual transmission, custom flatbed, those aluminum toolboxes, full road cage. Man, built-in factory air compressor, 12,000-pound winch. DeBrule, honestly, everyone needs a Unimog.
I love those things, and I think we've got a couple of them actually they're going to sell this week. I remember ever since I got a Matchbox Unimog, it was one of my all-time favorite cars. Thanks, April. Up on the block right now, it's pickup truck time, a 1950 Chevy 3800.
Well, if this looks huge, it is. This is a 1-ton. Remember, the 3100 was a half-tonner. The 38, a 1-ton. This is a massive 137-inch wheelbase, and this is a workhorse. The stock six-cylinder engine is still there. No V8s until 55. Nice restoration, a little shinier than stock, but basically an original look. I like it.
I think I'd be afraid to haul anything in it. This is so nicely restored. Note the windshield on these. Before wraparound glass came to trucks, these were flat planes with a center spine there. Really not difficult to look out of. You get used to that after a while. But wraparound windshields in trucks were still a ways away at GM.
There's that huge extra long bed seen only on the 1-tonners. The wood floor is stock, no steel or metal beds from GM until you get into the 1960s.
I don't think any of these 1-tonners were born with all of this gleaming chrome and stainless. They would have had an ivory colored grille, just a painted grille, without all of the chrome trimmings. Because they were workhorses. Nobody ever thought of trucks as luxury or personal vehicles like we enjoy them today.
Massive 1-ton rear axle, huge piece. Open drive on this one.
I'll tell you what, it's got a lot of love in the room because right now at $45,000, this is easily the #1 seller of the day, and it doesn't look like it's done. We're closing in on $50,000.
This one has a standard cab. There was an optional corner window available, not seen here, but again, this is the basic small window cab, but beautiful, just nicely presented. No dings, no dents. These are really susceptible to dents and repairs show. This looks very, very clean and straight.
Yeah, you wonder about the life it's had, because if it was sold as a 3800, a big one-tonner, you know somebody bought it for the express purpose of hauling stuff and probably working it quite heavily. And now it's up here gleaming, beautifully done, and the hammer falls at $49,000, making it easily the #1 sale of the day so far. Of course, we'll see how that holds up as the rest of the day goes by. Coming up in just a little bit, we'll have a 2002 Maserati Spyder GT, 4.2-liter V8. It's got an F1 transmission. When it was new, it cost $85,000. Oh, there you see the big tent with the McGuire staging lanes, and that's where all the cars stop just before they get to the block. But the great thing is, look at that area beside it where you can sit there and have some food, watch the cars just roll by you. And once again, inside, that's where they go and get one last chance to look at them before they hit center stage, and all the excitement of seeing them up on the block. A 1932 Chevy 3-window, 2-door coupe up there right now.
Note the lack of jewelry. You'll see the Chevy bow tie here in the spare tire emblem and also in the tail lights, but otherwise these are pretty much unadorned.
And not a rumble seat car. Generally, those will have a handle up here for the trunk to open like that with the seat inside. This is a more conventional deck lid with the handle down here. Also, we don't see the step panels on the fenders, but similar look, but if you don't see the handle up there, not a rumble seat.
We call this a 3-window coupe. You don't count the windshield, you count the rear window and however many are on the sides.
Way it goes, $30,000 for that 1932 3-window. Pulling up behind it, we're going to see a 1929 Ford Model A pickup. But first, don't forget, go to Barrett-Jackson.com, where you can see the entire list of cars that are about to cross the block. Remember, we're have the auction going all the way through Sunday. Quite a list of more than 1,800 cars. And of course, our coverage will go all through Saturday. Once again, up there right now, a 1929 Ford Model A pickup.
Ford offered heavy-duty pickup trucks at this point in time. They're known as the AA series, but this rides on the same chassis as a passenger car, and that's okay. These are rated to about 500-600 pounds at most in the back, but what a beautiful restoration on this.
A couple of neat points here. Here is the klaxon horn. That is a brand name. Can you beep that for us? Yeah, go ahead. Maybe with the ignition on. And this is a Royce Moto meter. It looks like a little thermometer because it is. And it tells you how hot the fluid in the radiator is because these cars don't have a temperature gauge.
This is a fairly rare body. This is actually a convertible top. Yes, it does fold down. Most of these pickups would have had a hard top, so kind of nice. A bit of sport, a lot of work, all in one.
You'll note that this pickup has only one tail light. That's because in most states, that's all that was required was a tail light.
We'll see that transverse leaf spring at the back, the banjo drive, and Ford used the transverse leaf spring from 1905 all the way up to 1948. And you know, if one part can do the job of two parts, why not? That was Henry Ford's motto.
Henry Ford invented a lot of things, but one thing he did not much care for were hydraulic brakes. These still retain the cable-operated brakes that went all the way back to the beginning of the automobile, whereas a number of manufacturers by 1929 had already embraced what hot rodders called juice brakes and hydraulic master and slave cylinders.
I guess, you know, early on, the idea of having a liquid and trying to seal that liquid and keep it in place, Henry Ford said, man, that sounds like a lot of complexity, a lot of trouble waiting to happen. So he used to say, you know, rods and metal, if that'll do, stay away from juice. But with that said, these are more prone, when not adjusted properly, to locking up quickly.
Well, this one's got a fair amount of love, $34,000 for that 1929 Ford Model A pickup. Beautiful under the hood, beautiful on the outside. It's nice when you see the older cars get restorations. All right, now think about that. That's what a 1929 Model A was supposed to look like. Here's what a Model T can look like. This is a 1923 T-Bucket.
That is a bunch of engines. Small block Chevy with aluminum cylinder heads, a BDS 871 supercharger. Here's the belt drive. Now, these superchargers originally saw duty on GMC two-stroke diesels. The 871 would be on an 8-cylinder, 71 cubic inches times 8, so that's what we got here. But Blower Drive Service is a company founded by Craig Railsback in Whittier, California, one of the go-to shops for streetable superchargers.
Now look at how narrow the front tires are and how wide the rear tires are. In hot rodding parlance, we call these bigs and littles, because the ones up front, all they had to do was steer and maybe occasionally help you slow down. The exhaust headers are called zoomies. They may have a little bit of a muffler function built into them, and maybe not.
Yeah, this is the power to weight ratio of a Ferrari F40 and the handling of, I don't know, a Nash Metropolitan, but it's built for fun, straight line activity only. If you drive it smart, you'll have a good time. Don't get in over your head. There's that transverse leaf spring once again up front, which is the original type of a design that would have been seen on Fords all the way up to 1948. This has been modified with a tube steel front axle drop to it, coil springs in the back, coil overs.
Now this is a pickup truck body, and this was a useful bed that now contains the battery on the right, and the rest of it is a metal fuel cell.
And this is fiberglass. In the early 60s, there was a whole thing called the Fad T. It was basically kit Model Ts, fiberglass buckets. Companies like Bird would sell you a kit like this. You'd build it yourself. And it was a whole thing in the 60s, the first Fad T. And not sure when this was made, but again, it's fiberglass, aftermarket, everything. But cool, nice, one of the first kit cars, really.
Now note the driving position. These don't have a lot of legroom, so basically, like this gentleman, how tall are you, sir?
6'2".
Okay, and your knees are right in the steering wheel, and that's the way it goes with these. They're not built for long-distance touring. They're just built to go out and have fun.
Speaking of fun, look at those wheelie bars right there. If this hooks up, they will keep the nose somewhat down, and of course they'll curb a wheel stand. You'll get up a couple inches, but they'll bring you back down to earth pretty quickly.
Yeah, you just have to battle the torque steer. $24,500 for a 1923 T-Bucket with a massive 350 cubic inch engine, the blower up front. Right behind it, we got a 1965 Sunbeam Alpine.
All right, so you have heard of the Sunbeam Tiger, which is what happened when Ken Miles and Carroll Shelby put a 260 cubic inch Ford V8 into the Sunbeam Alpine. This is an early one. They went through 4 series of these, but this has the Sunbeam overhead valve 4-cylinder engine. Looks like this one's been upgraded with a carburetor, and relatively rarely, this one has an automatic transmission, as well as Minolite-style wheels with knockoff hubs.
Well, these fought the MGB and the TR3, but again, these are based on the Hillman Husky, which was a small British car. Inside, take a peek there, and you'll see that. That's not a 4-speed. That's the automatic transmission, which was also available in the Hillman Husky. So, you know, a lot of parts off the out of the parts bin added together, but don't confuse this with the Tiger, although Tigers and Alpines were built at the same time alongside on the same assembly line. But again, not a V8-powered car, 4-banger.
So this is a Series 4. The last series is indicated by the emblem and the spotting cue. The Series 4, the vertical tail lamp. On earlier cars, these fins extended, and they had a slanted tail lamp. So this is the last series, and if you put this up side by side with an MGB, this was a more developed car with more creature comforts and equal, if not a little better, performance and a similar price.
Little known fact, these were styled by Raymond Loewy. Of course, we had a lot to do with Studebaker and one of the great industrial stylists of all time, but Loewy Studios and team did this for Roots Group, designed in America by Raymond Loewy.
You sure see a lot of 55 to 57 Thunderbird in the styling and proportion of these Sunbeam Alpines.
The Sunbeam Tiger, there's actually a Sunbeam Tiger registry, and they're quite a bit different than just putting a 260 or a 289 into one of these cars. There's a variety of things done under the frame, radiator wall, all that stuff. However, these are, you can put a 302 or a 289 in one of these if you want to, but it's not a simple swap. Firewall has to be changed, radiator wall, etc., etc. So get out the welder.
And there's a Tiger Authentication Committee that will vet your car to prove that it was born a Tiger and not a modified Alpine, as occasionally happens when Ford engines get dropped into these.
Well, the four-cylinder version just claimed $22,500 for that 1965 Sunbeam Alpine. Away it goes and away we go as the cars are all lined up outside. Sun will be going down soon here in Scottsdale.
We talk a lot about diversity of docket here at Barrett-Jackson, and these are some of the eclectic cars about to cross the block. But they're all from one owner who has really varied tastes in cars. Here's Rick.
Sometimes you look at a car collection and you instantly know the theme. Maybe it's convertibles or 50s cars. It might be Fords or Chevys. With the Mile High collection that's selling here at Barrett-Jackson this week, well, this is very eclectic. A big variety of stuff, starting with these two Mustangs. These were originally built to be pace cars for Michigan and Atlanta International Raceway. But the contract got canceled. Only 5 survived, and 2 of them are in the Mile High collection. Check out this variety. We got a 1978 Pinto station wagon. We've got a 1974 Camaro Z28. We've even got a Mercedes-Benz Unimog, the Mile High collection. So big, so broad, it's going to take all week to cross the block.
This is a huge collection, and it will be sprinkled throughout the docket for several days here at Barrett-Jackson. We'll call them out when they come to the block, as several will shortly. And I don't think I've ever seen as diverse a collection as this one.
Total of 69 cars, and it spreads the spectrum, just about everything. All right, up on the block right now, we've got a 1968 Camaro drag car. Current bid, $20,000.
Well, 220,000 Camaros were built in 1968, and a lot of them wound up like this in the 70s and the 80s as sort of pro street style drag cars. Now this one is absolutely a racer. It's got real live drag slicks, a Simpson drag chute in the back, 454, fiberglass fenders and hood. And I always say to myself, was this a Z28? Was it an SS36? Who knows? The VIN in this one does say 124, so it was born a V8 tub, but that was a long time ago. Not that it matters. It'd be a fun car for some weekend drag racing. Fiberglass front clip on this one, massive cowl type hood. Currently a 454, got a Power Glide 2-speed automatic. A lot of people say, why a Power Glide? It's a cylinder transmission, right? Well, you don't really need to shift more than twice going down a quarter mile in a car this quick. You don't need 3 speeds. 2 speeds does the job.
Do I need to say it? Not street legal. You could put it back to street legal, but not in its present form.
I will say, though, after midnight on places like, maybe the Berlin Turnpike, this might have rolled off a trailer at, say, 2 a.m. I won't say anything more than that. I've seen it happen. Anyway.
Well, I didn't say everything we did back then was street legal either.
Dangerous things done safely.
And the Summit Racing sold sticker goes on. They write the price, $21,000. And away that drag Camaro will go, and we will go to Tyler Hoover.
The lot 172 is the end of the line right here. It is a 2002 Pontiac Trans Am Collector's Edition, the 4th generation and final generation of the Trans Am. Of course, when they brought the Camaro back, which shared this platform, Pontiac was gone as a brand. So this is it. And not only that, it's a collector's edition with a special trim, but it only has 3,000 miles on it. It has a manual transmission, immaculate interior. You can see the W6 package as well, obviously, because of the Ram Air hood. You see the big nostrils here, which actually feed the engine. Very functional. You see the intake going right in here, feeding the LS1 V8. With the WX6, you also got better handling, better braking, but also that LS1 V8 engine, which of course is the birth of a dynasty when it comes to LS engines. I imagine this is going to be a great investment for someone. They could buy it and hold it long term because, well, find a nicer one.
And that'll be up on the block very soon. Thanks a lot. All right, you like yellow? Well, this is that Roy Rogers 1964 Lincoln Continental that Tyler previewed that accidentally became yellow.
Well, you got to keep in mind, there were 36,297 Continentals made in 64. Only 3,300 were convertibles. Very rare body style then as now. 64 was the first year for the 126-inch long wheelbase, 3-inch longer doors at the rear. Subtle but significant difference.
In the 50s, 60s, and 70s and the Saturday morning TV era, Gene Autry and Roy Rogers were the singing cowboys. Roy was billed as the king of the cowboys and his wife Dale Evans as the queen of the West. His horse was Trigger, hers was Buttermilk, the German Shepherd's name was Bullet, and every kid knew all of this from Saturday morning TV. And this was their daily driver that has spent the last 3 decades in the Roy Rogers Museum. Wow.
And it's getting some love. It is now the top seller of the day here on Tuesday. The current bid, $55,000, now up to $57,000. You know, it's not the car, it's absolutely the Roy Rogers connection.
Tyler told the story earlier how Roy wanted this car repainted in a Palomino gold, the color of his horse Trigger. And the fella he sent to the body shop with the orders was colorblind.
1964 Lincoln Continental, once owned by Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. It sells here at Barrett-Jackson for $65,000. What a connection to some great television from the black and white era. Absolutely beautiful day here in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's been beautiful all week, and it's just going to get nicer. I feel sorry for everybody else around the country that's had to endure some tough weather over the last week or two, but right here, it is wonderful here in Scottsdale. Up on the block right now, in 1999 Chevy Silverado 1500 pickup truck. Just hammered sold at $25,000. Remember, in addition to that, you will pay a 10% buyer's premium if you are the winning bidder. So you add another 10% to that, and you get to drive it away. Rolling up behind it, we've got a 2000 Toyota Land Cruiser.
Well, this one has a V8, and that's not a typo. We've got to remember that most Land Cruisers of the classic era was straight 6, in some cases diesel-powered, but this is an American version, and starting in 1998, the Toyota 4.7-liter V8 was available in Land Cruisers. This is a 2000, second year for that V8. Now, that V8 was also available in the Lexus passenger car, but the big difference was the passenger car Lexus V8 had aluminum block. The truck one has an iron block, but otherwise the same dual overhead cam cylinder heads, great breathing engine, and yes, V8 power in a Land Cruiser.
Yeah, you think about the evolution. You know, the Land Cruiser first came out in the early 1950s, went through a number of generations. This is the 100 series. They actually had both the 100 and the 105 with a lot of differences, but overall, they're still the 100 series. A little bit wider than its predecessor, but still a really solid vehicle, and you once again find these all over the world in places where you needed a little bit of a four-wheel drive oomph.
Speaking of solid, the rear axle on this is a beam style, no independent rear suspension for Toyota Land Cruiser yet, but instead of leaf springs, coil springs are used, which give you pretty decent off-road capability, but really nice on-road ride. And again, keep in mind, most of these are never used off-road. You know, they're used like in climates where there's a lot of snow. They're great in snow. And of course, they just look great and very safe vehicles for the family to ride in.
Well, it's bringing solid money right now. Currently the #2 sale of the day, or at least tied that way. We'll see where it ends up. When I go back to thinking about, imagine, you know, what those were like in the early 50s, those pretty, you know, rough versions. And then they became these luxury models with active ride control, complicated suspensions, big, huge V8 engines under the hood. Boy, it was beautiful inside. And now at $50,000 at the #2 sale. Remember, this is a 22-year-old vehicle.
I think maybe one of the things here is that it's got 34,280 miles. And, you know, I think we're starting to see that everything old is new again. This is a 22-year-old vehicle, and it is nostalgic. Although some of us older folks like me remember these when they were very common. But, you know, to a younger eye, this is a classic. I get it.
And according to the consignor, this was bought up in Colorado, and it was kept as a vacation home second car. So the owners only used it when they were at their vacation home. That's why it only has, you know, 35,000 miles on the odometer. Hammered sold at $55,000, solidly the number 2 sale of the day. Congratulations to that family right there. I think they're going to have some fun enjoying themselves in that Toyota Land Cruiser. All right, where's Mike Joy when we need him? A 1966 MGB Roadster up on the block.
These were made between 1963 and 1980, an amazing 18-year run. And this was MG's first unit construction sports car. Prior to this, of course, the MGTC and TD and all were body on frame, but not here. There were just about 500,000 of these made in that 18-year run. Now, this does have the optional wire wheels, which were a $98 option. Now, the price on this when it was new was $2,705 in '66, about $100 more than a base Mustang convertible. Not saying you'd necessarily cross-shop one of these against a Mustang, but if you wondered, this was a more expensive car.
Well, you look at the evolution of MG, you know, in the post-war era, you know, when they had the MGTC and the TD and the TF, those upright cars with that old styling. And then they transitioned to the MGA, much sleeker in the 1950s. And in the early 60s, the MGB came along, and it had this good, sleek, sophisticated look, much more modern for the 60s.
Nice thing about Barrett-Jackson Auction Block is that it's sort of a class in automotive engineering. We see something here going from the windshield frame down to the top of the dashboard. This metal rod is not an antenna. It's not a windshield divider. That's actually a strut that adds some stiffness in tension to prevent some degree of cowl shake and window shake. And it's also a nice place to mount the rearview mirror. But again, this is a structural member right here. It's in tension, and it keeps the windshield frame from wiggling around more than it otherwise might.
And the great thing is, you mentioned getting to watch automotive history. We're also going to see a TD cross the block. We're going to see a TC. So we're going to see elements of that MG history as it crosses.
This one does have the deck lid luggage tray in chrome. Very pretty. Take a peek inside and see if it's tidy inside as it is outside and all. Look at that. How nice. Nicely finished.
And that's just the way they came. Everything was painted to match the body. The dash is significant because the early cars, 1963 to 67, had the steel dash. I just sold my 67 last winter, and I didn't get anywhere near the $23,000 that is currently bid for this one, nor the $35,000 that a 74 sold for earlier today. Nicely done here.
Away that one goes for $23,500 for that 1966 MGB Roadster, that 1.8-liter four-cylinder motor. All right, from that little tiny MG to a great big 1964 Chevy K20 custom pickup truck. What a beast.
This is kinky. The hood is closed, but this is powered by a 3-cylinder Detroit diesel 2-stroke, which is very, very cool. Commonly you see a Duramax or a Cummins-type conversion, but this is a 3-cylinder Detroit diesel. Now keep in mind, the 71 series Detroit diesels were made between 1938 and 1995, a long run. But anybody who builds model cars or loves Hot Wheels cars will know the name Tom Daniel. Well, he was a stylist at General Motors before he made his mark at Mattel and Monogram, and this little styling touch right here was Tom Daniel's touch or addition to this generation of Chevy pickup truck. Tom Daniel, alive and well. Just go to tomdaniel.com for a look at his many designs. But if you built a Monogram model kit from, say, 1968 through 75, Tom Daniel probably designed it.
This truck has a very honest appearance. It is not over-restored. The paint is a shade off between the cab and the bed. A few little scratches from use here and there. So you jump in this, and you go haul whatever you want. Put it to work. That's what it's for.
Really, this is at that perfect point. If you want to take it and make it nicer, great. If you just want to use it the way it is and use it the way a truck's meant, you won't really feel too bad about it. This is actually the perfect point to buy this.
Notice this staggered rear shock absorbers to curb axle hop. Massive 14-bolt rear axle.
And that wraps up our first 2 hours of coverage here on FYI, but we're just getting started on this Tuesday. We still have 4 more hours to go. Welcome to Scottsdale, where we are celebrating 50 years of Barrett-Jackson, the world's greatest collector car auctions. We're off to a great start. The action continues up on the block with a big, huge 2006 Hummer H2. Bidding just getting underway here in Scottsdale.
Well, the H2 is the H1's not baby brother. That would be the H3, but the H2, these are strictly V8 powered, 6 liters or 6.2, although some people will put a diesel in these, but that never happened from the factory in Micklewasha, Indiana. These were built for General Motors by AM General under license.
325 horsepower ought to be plenty. So these were the Hummers that folks like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, and other members of Hollywood royalty had to haul, you know, passengers in comfort or whatever they wanted. Still very close to their military cousins until you got inside. These are just very, very luxurious. We'll wait till they roll it down to a halt before we open it up. But, you know, your Mercedes or your Audi or your BMW is probably not going to be any more luxurious inside than is this Hummer H2.
This color is factory. These were often painted in very vivid, bright shades right from Hummer.
You saw that big wide center console to house the driveline and everything. So these are strictly 4-seaters. I don't believe, let me check it. I don't believe that's a bench seat in the back, and I'm wrong again. Okay, make it a 5-seater with a rear bench.
These share half-ton and 3/4-ton GM chassis components. Kind of weird, the frame. I mean, it's a specific frame, but it has half-ton front suspension, 3/4 rear suspension. Kind of a hybrid.
$26,000 for all 325 horsepower of that Hummer H2 SUV. And let's check in with April Rose.
Check out this 1971 Cutlass Supreme. This is like a muscle car cross. Classy land yacht. Now, they sold 2 times as many this year than the previous year, and I also love what they did this year as well. They squared off these twin grills a little more. Just absolutely stunning. Now, it does have the Rocket 350 with a turbo 350 trans, and you got that Supreme interior wood trim. Of course, the matching dice on the mirror, the Foos wheels also, and it does come with the original rally wheels. I do like options, you know, because it's like wearing gym shoes or high heels. You got to pick which one you're going to go to for the right occasion, right, DeBrule?
Exactly. Just have a spare set of wheels and tires, and you can dress up for whatever occasion you want to go to. It makes total and complete sense, April. You've made me a convert. 2001 Porsche 911 Carrera Cabriolet that Christian Murphy previewed for us just a little while ago.
A 996 series 911, the first of the liquid-cooled consumer Porsches. This one in Atlas gray, a base Carrera with a light gray interior and a red fabric top for this cabriolet. And yes, all of those are factory. This one has the Tiptronic automatic transmission.
You know, another detail about these, it's very important, is 22 liters. No, I'm not talking about the engine, but 22 liters of liquid coolant. Again, Mike, to your point, the first year 4 liquid-cooled cylinder heads on the Porsche 911 family. And that was done to meet emissions and noise standards, believe it or not. The liquid cooling actually got away from the big fan, which quieted the engine down quite a bit.
This series began in 1999. Now we're all familiar with paddle shifters for our sequential shift. Porsche did it differently. These are shift buttons for shifting up or shifting down on either side of the steering wheel. It was a Porsche invention. It didn't really catch on and was replaced by the now ubiquitous paddles behind the steering wheel.
You know, Christian Murphy was saying when he was previewing this car that this is the kind of car that when you want to get into the collector car hobby, you can get into it at an affordable price, $34,000, and you've got yourself a Porsche to drive away in and enjoy. Congratulations to those folks right there. A little while ago, we previewed a 2002 Maserati Spyder GT, and now it is up on the block.
These were also offered in both coupe and convertible form with a Ferrari-derived engine. The styling was polarizing. Some folks thought, boy, this is a real cool little drop top and a sharp little GT. And others felt that perhaps Maserati just didn't go far enough to make this look more like an exotic design and justify the price.
These are built between 2001 and 2007. Not to cut you off, Mike, but I love that engine. What a beautiful thing that is. Keep in mind, the Spyder rides on an 11-inch shorter wheelbase than does the coupe. Similar styling otherwise, but again, the coupe has a backseat. Spyder does not. Despite that 11-inch shorter wheelbase, these are 100 pounds heavier than the coupe. And again, the underpinnings, the structural reinforcements to make it stiff are necessary. But you love that engine. Shared with Ferrari, as you say, Mike.
Italdesign styled these. Giorgetto Giugiaro, who was famed for, gosh, just so many great, especially Italian cars. And many folks thought that this was just a little tepid to justify what Maserati wanted it to be.
Tell you what, though, the first time I saw this was at the 2002 U.S. Grand Prix at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They had 3 of them sitting there, and I have to say, it was exciting to see a Maserati back in the United States.
These are steel-bodied cars, no aluminum panels here, so rust can be an issue, but I don't think many of these cars are going to wind up on salty roads.
That was a great place to bring it, Rick, because didn't Maserati win the 500 in, say, 1940? Wilbur Shaw?
I remember the victory. I don't remember the year or the person, but I'm going to find the answer to that one.
Let's go with that, okay?
Yeah, exactly. Brand new, this thing would have cost $85,000.
Some would ask, are these rare? Well, about 13,000 of these were made in coupe and Spyder, so not really rare, but surviving examples that are unmodified and serviceable are getting scarcer and scarcer.
The answer to the question, 1939 and 1940, Wilbur Shaw won in Maserati for both years.
Thank you. You can pay me later.
Exactly. You make me look good. $25,000 for that Maserati. We're going to take a quick break here in beautiful Arizona, but we'll come back to beautiful cars in just a moment.
Speaking of memories, this is lot number 153, a 1978 Ford Pinto Squire station wagon. Now laugh all you want, but I lived in Los Angeles, and yes, I drove a Pinto daily for about 2 years. I was working at Hot Rod magazine, and I used that Pinto to go to the junkyard. I actually went and I got a Cadillac 500 cubic inch V8, and I brought it home in the back of my Pinto. It was a very useful car. This one has a 2.3-liter Lima 4-cylinder engine and an automatic transmission. And boy, does it bring back some memories.
It is indeed the 50th anniversary of the Barrett-Jackson Collector Car Auction. The company was established back in 1971. They held their first auction in January of 1972. So this month marks 50 years that cars have been crossing the block and selling here at Barrett-Jackson. You see that Corvette pace car convertible just crossed the block? It just sold. They'll put the sold sticker on it, and away it will go. $34,000 the final price. A little bit earlier, we were talking about the Mile High Collection. 69 cars that are going to be crossing the block over the course of the week. And this is one of them right here. A 1985 Chrysler LeBaron convertible is going to kick it off.
Well, laugh all you want. These were actually very popular cars in their day, and this is the car that saved Chrysler Corporation, the K car, which arrived in 1981. The Town and Country convertible arrived in 82. This is in 85, and somewhere along the line, this car has, well, somebody paid $634 for the optional turbocharged four-banger, which is the 2.2, which is actually a very potent engine. Less money would have got you the V6, or sorry, the six-cylinder engine, but this is a Turbo 4, automatic only in the Town and Country. Now, these cars were born as coupes, but then went to Cars and Concepts in Brighton, Michigan, where the top was cut off, and they became convertibles. The same thing was done to the Mustang at the same point in time.
So the Town and Country is an upgrade on the LeBaron, and further still, designer Mark Cross lent his name to a special edition of which less than 600 were built. This car has been extremely well kept. The top does not show any wear from being cycled up and down. The vinyl wood style treatment on the sides shows no fading. This car has been very well kept.
I was 21 in 1985, and I remember very clearly when you saw these cars in traffic, when you saw the two pipes, that meant it had the Turbo 4, which was something of a hot rod engine, believe it or not. They had good power. Now, on a Chrysler Town and Country, there were no external graphics, but on a Dodge Aries or Plymouth Reliant, there was a turbo emblem on the fender, which, again, I guess Chrysler was a little too tasteful to exhibit on the side. But when you see this hood with the vents, that means there's a turbo motor underneath. Watch out. You gotta love the faux crystal hood ornament seen specifically on the Chryslers.
These were not inexpensive. These were over $13,000 new back in 1985 before they were highly optioned up.
If we take a look on the driver's side lock pillar here, there's a sticker here from Cars and Concepts. Or sorry, Creative Industries, excuse me, right there, that red thing. That is the certification sticker from Creative Industries that indicates the car was modified but is still applicable to all laws.
$12,000 the hammer price on that particular Chrysler. You know, as you walk around here, all these cars bring back memories as we see each one. And of course, for Steve Magnante, well, not too hard to find something that stirs him and brings him back.
Speaking of memories, this is lot number 153, a 1978 Ford Pinto Squire station wagon. Now, laugh all you want, but I lived in Los Angeles, and yes, I drove a Pinto daily for about 2 years. I was working at Hot Rod Magazine, and I used that Pinto to go to the junkyard. I actually went and I got a Cadillac 500 cubic inch V8, and I brought it home in the back of my Pinto. It was a very useful car. This one has the 2.3-liter Lima four-cylinder engine and an automatic transmission. And boy, does it bring back some memories.
And indeed, that is the Pinto wagon we'll be seeing crossing the block in just a few moments, a 1978 Ford Pinto. Up on the block right now, we've got a 1968 Moke.
Well, this is an Austin Mini. These were unit body cars with a transverse four-cylinder engine and front-wheel drive, and they made them like this. As you also, in addition to the two-door sedans, they made these open utility vehicles. There's your standard Mini speedometer and fuel gauge and steering column and heater box, and everything here is genuine Mini. Gas tank along the side, a unit body vehicle. These were fun at the beach, and a lot of them found their ways to the paddocks of major sports car races, to All Tools back and forth to the pits and so on.
These are built between 1964 and 1993 and initially designed to be airdropped by the British military. One of the problems was the poor ground clearance, which, I mean, they're not that great for military use. So we can see here there's not a lot of ground clearance. You get high-scented in enemy territory, you'd be taken prisoner. That's the end of that. But they were much more popular with rock groups in the 1960s. I think Herman's Hermits did a video with one of these, the Mini Moke.
Now check out the wheels. They are the original size. They are 10 inches in diameter, probably 4.5 to 5 wide, and these were sticky Yokohama radials.
Well, we see cute sell here at Barrett-Jackson over and over again, and this is the case. $35,000 for that 1968 Mini Moke. We're going to take a quick break here at Barrett-Jackson, but we will come back in just a moment. Remember, more than 1,800 cars are crossing the block. So much to see, so much to do in Scottsdale this week, and up on the block right now at the center stage for the Barrett-Jackson Collector Car Auction is a 1991 Camaro RS. It looks like a highway patrol car, but it's actually a recreation.
Yeah, keep in mind there were 592 real CHP Camaros in 1991, and that legacy began in 1979 when about 10 cars were done. This is a recreation. It lacks the B4C RPO code, which is specific, but all the right stuff has been added to this car. It's very convincing.
Yeah, for those of us who used to keep track of the headlight configuration of the cars behind us, this was a little confusing because you used to know exactly what the headlight configuration for a Crown Victoria was to know whether there was a highway patrolman behind you. Having a Camaro, well, that confused things just a little bit. $16,000 for that 1991 Camaro RS Highway Patrol recreation. All right, a little while ago, Steve Magnante took us down memory lane with his 1978 Ford Pinto Squire that he talked about his Pinto memories, and it's up on the block right now.
All right, stop laughing, because I have one of these. I own half of it with Charles Boyd and his sons, and we bought it because we love wagons. And when Charles and I grew up, everybody's mom in the neighborhood had a Woodside wagon. Of course, they were much bigger, Mercury Colony Parts and Ford Country Squires. But Ford, every size Ford had a Squire version with the wood trim, and often the interior matched the exterior. Thank God mine is not this green. I guess it's very attractive. If your name's Kermit, it's got an automatic, a 2-liter overhead cam engine, and there's no other car I have that you go anywhere and people don't say, I remember these, and everybody's got a story to tell you.
Yeah, it might be cute on the block right now, but you got to remember that Detroit was at the height of its decline in the late 70s. Keep in mind, a Honda Civic or a Toyota Corolla or a Volkswagen Rabbit was frankly a much better car than a Pinto. And to be honest, Ford kind of wanted to punish some of the people who bought these cars, so they made them cheap. That said, today we've forgotten those sins, and these are wonderful little critters. I drove, again, a hatchback, which was a very useful car. And the fire problem with these things really was kind of a lawyer thing. If you hit anything hard enough, it'll explode. The trouble with these was that the gas tank was packaged between the bumper and the rear axle. You hit it at 90 miles an hour, yeah, it's going to blow up. So they did a recall, put some plastic shielding in there, the issue was solved. But I drove mine for about 20,000 miles in LA, and I'm still here.
Well, I tell you what, the original Pinto, back when they did showroom stock racing, in showroom stock C division, it was actually a solid winner. It was a great little car.
Pat Bedard, Car and Driver Magazine, drove the 00 Pinto. And I believe Jerry Walsh's son has that car. And yeah, he has it restored. It was at Lime Rock last year for the IMSA RS reunion.
This is the time when Ford foisted off the Pinto's 600-pound heavier weight than a Volkswagen Rabbit as road-hugging weight. So frankly, it wasn't a great car in its time, but hey, it kept the fire burning. Today, they're cute as heck.
You're right, Steve. They promoted that in their advertising as an advantage. We know now that it wasn't. But you're right. Cute sells. I think this is very, very cool. But then again, I have questionable taste.
You got to keep in mind, anytime a station wagon has 2 doors, it's extra cool. But the Pinto is such a small car, they never did a 4-door wagon. So again, they kind of have a built-in cool factor. And they did make some cruising wagons with sealed-off sides, no glass, and they were pretty cool. Those are red hot today with collectors.
Tell you what, we talk about the ability to get into the collector car hobby fairly inexpensively. That's it right there for those gentlemen, $8,500.
We just did a whole lot of work for $8,500 there, I'll tell you. Well bought.
Off it goes, and off we go to Tyler Hoover.
Well, the three amigos back at the block better get ready for a bonanza of square bodies. I am surrounded by them, but this one is my favorite. It's a 1980 C10 Bonanza, but it's a resto mod. It's very subtle. My favorite part, these wheels, which are one-piece 20-inch wheels, but they're patterned to look like the original. Kind of subtle. Same with the paint. Root beer brown and gold, definitely a color of the 80s, but a little bit of metallic to it to give it more of a throwback. One thing that's not subtle, though, under the hood, an LS1 Corvette V8 with a cam. I'm told this thing absolutely hauls, and, well, way more power than the original 350 that was inside. But you look inside the interior, and it is super, super clean. But another subtle thing here, you have the original gauge cluster, but you have the Dakota digital gauges to run all of the LS stuff, so you see everything. Everything's subtle, everything's just so perfectly well done, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, that is very nicely done. It's a mix of the 60s, 70s, and modern stuff. All right, up on the block right now, a 1972 Camaro. This one's a Z28.
We'll make this a 74, and we know that because it's the slope nose and the big bumpers. The first year for those, 73 the last year for painted stripes. These are decals, but otherwise it's still the great handling Camaro that every early second generation Z28 was.
This is the year that General Motors began its huge mistake of dropping the Camaro. 74 was the final Z28, I should say. Final year for Z28, 74. 75 and 6, no Z28. Meanwhile, Trans Am sales exploded. For 77, Z28 came back. Chevrolet understood the error of its ways. But as a 74, this has aluminum bumpers, whereas the steel bumpers used previously were a little heavier, but these have been clear-coated. We can see here. They look pretty good, but aluminum bumpers front and rear to cut weight for better fuel economy, which was the big thing in the early 70s. It has the final year before catalytic converters arrived in 75. Michael?
74 was the only year for the slope nose and the small back window. The wraparound rear window came about for 1975. Yeah, but you had this look on the Camaro until the full urethane bumper cover in 78.
Yeah, in 1974, Chevrolet sold 151,000 Camaros, of which only 13,802 were Z28s, like 1 in 12, which is a pretty good number, but I can see where product planners probably said, hey, that performance stuff is over. But meanwhile, Trans Am sales went crazy, and again, Chevrolet said, oh, let's get back into this thing. In 77, the Z came back.
Well, there was absolutely no subtlety about the graphics on this, was there? You knew exactly what you were driving behind. And up on the front, you know, to almost challenge that screaming chicken from the Trans Am, that massive Z28 logo, and $38,000. And those folks down in the seats were having a party. Congratulations to them as the winning bidder at $38,000. Wow. Remember Barrett-Jackson.com, that's where you can see a list of all the cars, and you can find out the ones that have already sold, see what they've sold for, or check out the cars that are yet to cross the block. It's at Barrett-Jackson.com. Earlier, April Rose previewed the Unimog pickup truck, and it's up on the block right now, a 1966 Mercedes-Benz Unimog.
These were designed initially for military use, and nothing about these is compromised. We look at the axles. They have what we call a portal design, which actually was very similar to what was used in Volkswagen microbuses, but much heavier duty. What that allows is the wheel center line and the axle center line to be off by almost a foot, which increases your ground clearance. But coming down the passenger side of this, we'll see that the frame has a saddle effect. You can see it drops down the middle but comes up on the ends. Again, it's all about ground clearance. These things will go pretty much anywhere.
Upgraded with those 40-inch Super Swamper tires, and they call this an EXO roll cage, as in EXO, which is a takeoff on the term exoskeleton. You know, like insects have, or lobsters, with the hard parts on the outside and the soft parts on the inside.
And Rick, you mentioned the Matchbox Mercedes Unimog as a kid. I remember they had yellow little wheels, a blue body, and I drool when I see those today. It's a Pavlovian thing. I have one in my collection at home. I love them.
Yeah, and for a kid, I mean, I'd never heard of a Unimog. To me, it was something really cool that I'd never heard of, got to see for the first time, and it's part of what fueled my interest in cars.
This one is customized to a degree. You know, we see this sort of aluminum structure on it and whatnot, but again, the portal design on the axles is really fascinating to see the way that the gearbox is. And the thing with that is you can actually do multiplication of speed, slow the axles down, and there's spur gears inside of those structures. So again, ground clearance and gear reduction all in one.
In the early years of Unimog, I'm not sure they put that big three-pointed Mercedes star in the grille because this was a whole different line of commercial vehicles, separate from the Mercedes, you know, road cars and trucks.
Well, you look at the back, and they call this a pickup, but it's really not. It's more like a flatbed with a couple of toolboxes on either side.
Yeah, it's almost what do the Aussies call it, a tray bed. Yep, couple of boxes there, a couple of jerry cans for fuel, a huge spare tire, every bit as big as the four that are on it, and a big 12,000-pound winch.
Here's how the mud flaps on the back are quick disconnect. This little pin comes out right here. You slide these out, and these are gone for, you know, off-road use. Don't need them, take them off.
I'll tell you what, per pound, that's probably not a bad deal. $24,000 for a 1966 Mercedes-Benz Unimog. All right, coming up, we're going to see a 1957 Ford Fairlane Sunliner convertible. Check out this beautiful two-tone red and white exterior and interior. We'll see it very soon. Up on the block right now here at Barrett-Jackson, the 1995 Corvette Pace Car convertible.
Well, only 527 of these were built and 25,000 miles on this one. The purple with white scheme is authentic, and this has all the Pace Car graphics, and that hard-to-keep clean white convertible top is in perfect shape.
1995, Jacques Villeneuve won the Indy 500 that year, and this was the pace car, $18,500, the final price. All right, time for a Tri-5. We're going to go back to 1956. This one's a Chevy Bel Air Custom.
Well, notice the wide open hardtop body on this four-door. Yeah, it is a four-door. The rear door handles have been shaved off, which is a typical move or classic move, but 56 was the first year for the four-door hardtop. 55, no go, but here it is for the first time. Under the hood, the small block Chevy, which was also available in 55, 56, but this one's bigger. It's a 350, but they all look the same from the outside.
This is the first Tri-5 Chevy of the auction here in Scottsdale. Tri-5 meaning 55, 6, and 7. They all had styling differences, but under the skin were all quite similar and have long been blue chip collectibles.
Yeah, 1956, 1.6 million Chevy full-sizes were built. Of them, 152,000, or about 1 in 10, had this four-door hardtop body style, which was all new again for 1956.
Note all the stainless trim down the side, typical of the Bel Air, the top-of-the-line Chevrolet. And if yours was born with a V8, it got that V on the trunk and on the hood to show everybody that you had the power.
There's the beautiful wraparound rear window, which was further exaggerated in 56 versus 57. And also in the 1955, 56 hood was also about 6 inches longer than the 55 hood, as these cars got lower, longer, and wider as the styling trend of the 50s evolved.
And of course, this was supposed to be the end of the line of this styling line. They hadn't intended to make another version of this in 57, but they didn't have the 58 ready in time, and so this body style was modified into what we now consider the 57 Classic. $30,000. The Summit Sold sticker goes on. They write the number, and away it goes. Up on the block right now, a 1957 Volkswagen Beetle. This one is a sliding ragtop.
What a beautiful little car. It's not customized or hot rodded. This is a factory paint combination. And I love this, the little enameled Wolfsburg crest still present and accounted for. Easily peeled off with a jackknife or a switchblade if you're one of those kind of guys. But there it is, present and accounted for. Pretty little car.
Note the covered headlights, which didn't persist for very long, but the fluting in the lens is the cover of those lights. And I think they continued about into the 1960s, but the small windshield and the small rear window on this denote it as an early bug, and the tiny taillights.
Speaking of that small window, this is the 57 final year for this fairly small surface area. Of course, you keep in mind the first couple years was actually a split window, but for 58, it became probably about 35% larger.
So yesterday, I'm walking around Barrett-Jackson with Daniel Suarez, NASCAR driver, who grew up restoring these with his dad. From 200 feet away, I said, hey, let's go look at that buggy. And he looks at the back window from 200 feet away, and he goes, yeah, that's a 56 or 57. Whew. Fella knows his stuff.
Well, you know, a lot of people forget, you know, they think about the oval window. Before this, in the early 50s, they had the split window. You know, long before there was a Corvette split window, there was a Volkswagen split window. This, however, is the last year, and Daniel's dead on. The next year they got rid of the oval window, went to the rectangular window, and got rid of those little lights up front that are on the front bumper, the turn signals.
You notice the wind wing in the door of that little triangular piece of glass. That arrived in late 52, but 49 through 52 early, there was no wind wing. That came along again to better ventilate the inside of the car. A lot of folks will actually remove the wind wing, this glass here, on their customized Beetles, but they were proper and correct.
Now, we call these Beetles, you saw the hood. Come on, let's get a look at the back of this, because I kind of have a theory. If you'll come back here and just get us a wide shot of the tail, don't these look like the folded wings of a Beetle? Is that partly how the car got the name Beetle? Maybe.
I don't think it's accidental. All right, $26,000 for the 57 VW Beetle. Now, if you'd like to try your hand and sharpen your bidding skills, and perhaps snag a great prize in the process, you'll want to play Fantasy Bid, brought to you by Dodge. And right now, April is going to preview one of the cars that you'll be predicting the price on.
Oh man, check this out. This is a rolling piece of art right here. 1927 Ford Model T Custom Roadster, also known as the Grocery Getter. Okay, that's a great name. I could talk about this build all day long. She will sell on Super Saturday. She's got the LS3 motor, 4 L65 E-Trans, the Ford 9-inch rear end, and just check out that stunning interior, the glove soft leather, custom billet touches, Dakota digital cages, that retro steering wheel. I mean, so much went into this build, and to top it off, Rick, it's finished in a color called Bubbly, which I think we deserve some bubbly right now. What do you think?
Yeah, who wants to call it champagne when you can call it bubbly? All right, thanks, April. You know, that little hot rod is going to cross the block this Saturday, so go to BarrettJacksonFantasyBid.com, or all you have to do is scan a QR that you'll see to register to play. Who knows, if you play the game at all 4 Barrett-Jackson auctions this year, you could walk away with a 2022 Dodge Challenger. And remember, you'll be predicting what it's going to sell for this Saturday. Up on the block right now, a 1978 Rolls-Royce Silverado II sedan.
Well, this one is a Wraith, and we know the difference between a Wraith and a Shadow is the longer wheelbase and the much longer rear doors. And again, these are cars that were, well, the owners usually were driven in, so getting in and out of the back seats was of prime importance, thus the longer wheelbase and longer doors on the Wraith.
As a kid, my father had a paper route in Bel Air, and so I would go with him to deliver the papers. We'd drive around, and we were just surrounded by the silver Shadows, the silver Wraiths. It was cool looking at them and thinking, you know, maybe someday, and now that I can afford it, I'm like, nah, not interested. $16,000 for a 1978 Rolls-Royce Silver Wraith. But you think about all the design, all the luxury that went into that car in its day, to be able to buy it for just $16,000, not bad at all. And according to consignor, it's got new engine mounts, new transmission mount, all kinds of work has been done to it, so it's really ready to drive. Rolling up behind it, a 2011 Mercedes-Benz SL 550 Roadster.
Well, these are beautiful cars. I've always loved the graceful look, long nose, short deck, just the recipe for a muscle car. But this is German. Oh yeah, the Germans build muscle cars too.
This has the AMG Performance Styling Package with that special front and rear apron and 5-spoke AMG wheels. Very nice dark obsidian gray with red. Now, for cars produced since the late 80s that have 17 character vehicle identification numbers, a whole industry has popped up doing vehicle history reports. That's to help used car buyers know what a car has been through. And the report on this car indicates it has had a rear impact collision that has been repaired, and that's the kind of thing you want to know first rather than later. It will hold the value and the selling price of this car back, but everybody's on the level playing field and everybody knows what the history of this car is.
And the nice thing is that is on the car card, so when you're walking around, you're looking, you get to see that information. You get to make the decision whether you want to buy it or not. And once again, probably properly repaired, but at least you know that going in the door.
Now, unfortunately, if you're looking at cars before 1981 that didn't have 17 character VINs, most all of those reporting services do not have information on older cars.
You know, the thing about a rebuilt wreck is that if it's done by a professional shop, there's really not much to worry about until you go to sell it, and then that stigma is going to haunt it for the rest of its life. But there's a lot of value to be had in a well-done rebuilt wreck, as they call them.
And some of those reports, like this one, are very detailed. It said there was a rear impact, but the airbags in the car did not deploy. So that tells me it was a low-speed impact, and the amount of damage was not huge, not nearly enough, say, to cause a total rebuild of this car. But that kind of transparency, I think, really helps the auction process.
Exactly, and that's what we see here at Barrett-Jackson, between that type of thing as well as with the experts they have that review cars to make sure that they are what they claim to be. $34,000, the final price for that car. We're going to head out to the Meguiar's staging lanes and Tyler Hoover.
So I think my earliest memory of seeing a Mustang on TV was probably with Full House, you know, the bright red convertible driven by Uncle Jesse with the family going across the Golden Gate Bridge, and it looks very similar to this. Of course, we've lost Bob Saget recently, which is just a very, very sad thing, but I could picture myself loading up the family and doing the exact same thing in this Lot 166, a 1966 Ford Mustang convertible. This one's lightly modified. It has a 302 V8 under the hood. You can see the black bucket seats, automatic transmission. One touch I really like on this one, though, is the hand-done pinstriping, which really accentuates the body lines of this car. It looks really, really well done. Just a beautiful car.
And of course, resale red, you can't go wrong with a Mustang convertible from that era, and that'll be up on the block very soon. Meanwhile, a square body, a 1969 Chevy C10 Custom.
Well, custom is the word. This has been tugged in pro street fashion with a 4-link rear, a narrowed axle, and some big sticky Mickey tires. And I like the taillights. Those look like they might be late 80s, early 90s Cadillac Eldorado goodies. Pretty nice.
Yeah, that tailgate no longer drops to load the bed, but the styling effect, I think, with the Caddy lights is terrific. And I agree with you, Steve. They look like they were born there.
So late 80s GM step side merged to a mid-60s, late 60s Chevy cab. Kind of works. The paint brings them together like they were meant to be. Weld wheels on this. Of course, Greg Weld, the founder of Weld Wheels, Weld Racing Wheels. And these are two-piece construction, lightweight aluminum rims, front and rear.
You just can't deny the styling of the standard cab pickup truck with the single seating row. Now, every time I had one, I'd wished I'd had a super cab or a crew cab, but these just look and drive so cool compared to their much longer brethren.
$26,000, the hammer price on the 1969 Chevy C10 Custom with that big 454 cubic inch engine underneath the hood. Well, don't go anywhere. We still have plenty of coverage of the Barrett-Jackson Collector Car Auction and plenty of cars yet to cross the block.
What I love most about Barrett-Jackson is that I used to watch the auctions in Mexico with my grandfather, with my father. We are a car family, and every single time watching for days and days, watching different cars, different prices, and waiting for different cars. It's just unbelievable. And now to have the opportunity to actually attend this amazing event in person is like a dream. So looking forward to it.
People all over the world know about Barrett-Jackson. Daniel's not alone in his ability to watch and enjoy and get a chance to experience the 50th anniversary here at Barrett-Jackson. Up on the block right now, good money for a 1971 Olds Cutlass Supreme convertible custom.
Boy, beautiful green pearl, big chip foose wheels, nice mild custom, brand new white convertible top. You know, Daniel Suarez is here, Indy 500 winner Ari Luyendyk's here, super modified legend Bentley Warren just walked off the block, and since NASCAR is testing at Phoenix Raceway today and tomorrow, we may have some other superstars wander by here this evening.
Hammered down. This is the one that April previewed for us, and she was dead on, $45,000. That makes that the number 5 sale of the auction so far. The top seller so far, the 1964 Lincoln Continental that was once owned by Roy Rogers, and it sold for $65,000. That's the number 1 sale of the day. The number 2 sale, that Toyota Land Cruiser, and then a big, huge pickup truck that sold for $49,000. But as the auction goes along, we know these numbers are going to get left by the side of the road because they're just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. All right, a special Corvette up on the block right now. That's a 1992 ZR1.
Well, indeed, there's that Lotus designed, General Motors produced. Of course, these are made actually in Stillwater, Oklahoma by Mercury Marine, but there it is, 32 valve, twin overhead cam, 16 intake port, 2-speed intake manifold, 5.7. Same size as the LT1, but these make 375 horsepower. And the next year for these, 1993, they bumped it to 405, but inside you'll find 6-speed manual transmission, so if you can't drive a stick, you ain't driving a ZR1.
Not just under the hood, but these fenders are much wider than on a stock Corvette because the rear wheels in this special 5-spoke design are much wider than the fronts.
And these were expensive cars. It was a $30,000 option on a $27,000 car. But again, 448 of these were made in 1992. And a very special car. These are coming on strong.
I think one of the things that held them back over the years is the subtlety of the work that was done. You know, when you first look at it, it doesn't look that much different than just another, Corvette of its era, when in reality it is radically different. Body, under the hood, performance, everything is different.
The styling is stealth, but the performance is explosive.
About the ZR1 is that Chevrolet never did redesign the ZR1 specific extra wide tail with the centrally mounted light. Rather, it was always located up top, but only on ZR1s.
$37,000, $36,000, the final price right there. We're going to stay in the Chevrolet family because rolling up behind it is a 1957. This one is a 150 custom.
Well, a 150 was the base Chevrolet, and remember, there were no compacts or subcompacts. They were all full-size cars. This one, you don't see the V on the hood, so it was likely born as a 6-cylinder, or it's had that emblem shaved off.
And above the 150 was the 210, and of course the Bel Air. Oh, nice, the hood's up. Yeah, small block Chevy, probably a 350. Edelbrock Performer RPM dual-plane intake, a small Holley 4-barrel. Nice, classic stuff.
This car is called Casper. Casper the Friendly Ghost was a Saturday morning cartoon staple of the 1960s.
Love the Traeger SS mag wheels. First seen in 1965 and ever since, one of the greats.
So that finishes up 3 hours of live coverage today, but don't worry, we still have plenty more great vehicles to show you this week on our coverage right here on FYI.
We've been waiting 50 years for this. It's Barrett-Jackson's 50th anniversary celebration. We've had so many memorable moments over the years.
Give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. George Barris, Joji Barris.
This is the only one that there is that'll ever be the true Shelby.
And we're ready to make many more this week in Scottsdale. This is the greatest collection of cars we've ever had. Stunning automobiles from every corner of the collector car world. And they're all selling at no reserve. Classics, customs, trucks, resto mods, the best cars on the planet. And they're all here. The Barrett-Jackson 50th anniversary celebration starts right now on FYI.
We are absolutely thrilled to be in Scottsdale for Barrett-Jackson's 50th anniversary celebration. We have 3 hours of action-packed live coverage for you right here on FYI. Plenty of cars that will be crossing the block during the course of our full week of coverage. And up on the block right now is a 1964 Cadillac Coupe de Ville.
Well, it's nice to see an unmodified car. This is bone stock, and the final year for the horizontal headlights, they go vertical for 1965, but something new for 64 was the 429 cubic inch V8 under the hood. Grew out of the 390, which was seen in 63, but just a nice stock presentation.
So the DeVille was the base Cadillac, and 63 and 64 was a 2-year styling cycle. The fins were still present, though they were much smaller than in previous years at the back, and they would go away pretty much completely. They'd be vestigial fins 1 year later. But this white over white, 2-door hardtop, just beautifully preserved.
That's correct, all the way down to the single exhaust exiting out the driver's side. Keep in mind, after 1960, Cadillac went completely single exhaust. Now here's why. Dual exhausts tend to resonate and make noise that you can hear inside the car. Cadillac wasn't pretending these are muscle cars. They didn't want their occupants to hear a rumbling V8, so they had nice, big, high flow, but very quiet single exhaust systems until 1990, when the Cadillac STS finally came back with dual exhaust. But this is correct right down to the single pipe.
Now note the taillights. These lenses are red. These lenses are clear with red bulbs, and the clear taillight look was unique to Cadillac, with the one exception at General Motors. The 64 Pontiac Grand Prix had special clear taillight lenses very similarly.
There was a time these were seen as just big old gas hogs, and people couldn't get rid of them fast enough. I love these cars, and it's nice to see them getting respect.
Well, this thing is almost 19 feet long from stem to stern, so that's a lot to respect right there. $35,000, that 64 Cadillac Coupe de Ville. Right behind him, we got a 2004 Porsche 911. This is a Carrera Cabriolet.
Well, this is late in the 996 cycle. This one has been well enjoyed with 94,000 miles on the clock. The Friday headlights, Porsche introduced these mid-cycle so you could tell the front of the 911 apart from the much less expensive car that saved the company, the Porsche Boxster. But very nicely optioned car. It's got a wind blocker. It's got those great alloy, very lightweight 5-spoke wheels. An Executive Express here.
You know, speaking of Boxsters and 911s, the big difference was not styling. Again, they were very easy to mistake, but the Boxster had an engine located behind the passenger and driver's seats rather than the 911's rear-mounted engine. A whole lot more performance in the 911, although very easily identified against a Boxster. But these are the real deals, the 911s.
Well, from the dashboard forward, the cars were the same, and that 911 owners weren't happy about that. But look at how many car companies had done the same, beginning with, let's say, American Motors with the AMX and the Javelin. And a lot of other companies have done it since. And it saved Porsche, but by being able to have that commonality between their two sports car lines. Hard to imagine that today, the best-selling Porsche is the Macan, the small SUV.
brand new. The sticker on this thing, almost $92,000. We're a long way from there, less than a third.
Six-speed manual transmission, power top and power windows, of course. And just below the radio, those slots there, that's a Fisher system to store your CDs that were inserted into the radio head unit. Heated seats on this one as well. Highly optioned car.
And all steel, no aluminum doors, no aluminum hood, nothing. It's all steel, and it's a double-edged sword. It's stronger than than aluminum. However, it is prone to rust. Not that a car like this is going to wind up on a salt-encrusted New England highway for long. But again, all steel, cheaper to make.
Once again, we've talked about when you want to enter the hobby, maybe you've lusted after a Porsche. I mean, you think about it, for $27,000, this is your opportunity to get in. This is a 911 with a serious history behind it.
Now, what's holding this car back again? The vehicle history report reports minor damage on both sides of the car, and that'll hold the number back. But somebody's going to get a chance to drive a great car here for what I think is very much a bargain price because of that.
This is an old school stick shift. No Tiptronics, no paddles here. Some folks simply don't want that modern stuff. I'm kind of one of them. So if you want a stick shifted Porsche for reasonable money, this is a great one.
Yeah, you get to control all 315 horses, Atlas gray exterior. It's got a lot to offer. And for the money, $27,500 that I just hammered sold, that's an awful lot of cars. Little sticker goes on. A little bit earlier, Tyler Hoover was previewing a car that he thought would be great when it got up on the block, and this is it. It's a 1966 Mustang convertible.
Well, indeed, the Mustang convertible was the second best-selling behind the hardtop. Believe it or not, these outsold the Fastback 2+2 by a wide margin. But this one was born a T-code, 6-cylinder, the 240 cubic inch motor. Sorry, 200 cubes, excuse me. The scoop on top of the hood is kind of somebody's idea of a good idea, but beyond that, it looks very nice and stock.
This one's been treated to maybe some freestyling with the burgundy door panels and the black seats. You see the emblems here. This is called the pony interior option with all of that embossing of the vinyl.
This one has been upgraded, thankfully, with a 302 V8 swap. That's okay with me. The one thing I don't know is if the original four-lug wheels and brake drums have been upgraded to the 5-lug heavy-duty parts found on V8 Mustangs. That's unknown because these wire wheel covers, I can't see through them. But with that said, it has a 302 V8 instead of the 206-banger, which is fine with me. Automatic transmission.
First generation Mustang, launched at the New York World's Fair in 1964, produced through 1966, and again, another blue chip collectible.
Good news, I'm looking through the spokes. I do see 5-lug wheels, so happily the Falcon 6-cylinder suspension has been upgraded somewhere along the line to V8 stuff. That's good.
Now to your point, Mike, they sold almost 700,000 Mustangs for that first model year. You got to remember in '66 the Camaro still hadn't come along, so they sold over 600,000 in 1966 alone. So Mustang was ruling the world at that point when everybody else was trying to figure out how else do I do a pony car.
Yeah, that's right. You chose between the Mustang and the Plymouth Barracuda. General Motors had nothing for you in this class of car until the Camaro debuted for 1967.
We'll say that Corvair, Monza, and Corsa owners might argue, but again, that was truly a different car. But that's as good as it got. You're right, Mike. They didn't really have any kind of straight comparison. Maybe a Nova Super Sport, but yeah, the Camaro was a late comer, but a great car.
And of course, this is the last year of this original body style. They did it for 2 years, 65, 66, 67 comes along. It gets much beefier because, quite frankly, they wanted to put bigger engines under the hood. Oh, it came so close to becoming the #1 sale of the day. The hammer came down for that beautiful Mustang convertible at $64,000, but it doesn't duck the #1 spot. Nope. Right now, that belongs to that Roy Rogers 1964 Lincoln Continental. It sold for $65,000. If you want to break into the top 5, it's going to take you at least $48,000. Oh, that's for now. As the week goes on, those numbers will only go up. We're going to take a quick break. We will come back to the Barrett-Jackson Collector Car Auction, the 50th anniversary celebration here in Scottsdale. Welcome back. 50th anniversary celebration for the Barrett-Jackson Collector Car Auction. Up on the block right now, we got a 68 Chevy Nova Custom.
Well, 1968 was the first year for a total redesign on the Nova. 67, quite a different creature. This one's been hot rodded a bit. It's got a 10-bolt rear axle, but something kind of neat are the monoplate leaf springs. Yes, Chevrolet used a single plate of metal to suspend the car, and they're still here on this one.
$43,500 for that particular Nova. Rolling up behind it, we got a pickup truck from Chevy to Ford. This one's a 1979 Ford F-150.
Oh, if these cars and trucks could talk, because this one has just 14,600 miles, and it's a one-owner truck. Where's it been all these years?
Well, indeed, the square headlights were seen for the first time in 79, but 78 and a half they debuted. But again, 79 first year for the square lights, which were kind of a big deal, a Detroit trend that went throughout every manufacturer. This one's kind of unusual. Got the 351 with a 4-speed manual transmission. It's not a muscle truck, but it's kind of close. 4-speed stick, long bed, original paint, it looks like. Nice presentation.
This one has air conditioning, factory step bumper in the rear, factory side and wheel moldings, and yes, Steve, the consignor says this is all original paint.
The only thing better than the 351, well, there was actually a 400 and a 460, which could both be had in 79. But keep in mind, 79-80, there was another fuel crunch, and big engines like this went away. By 1981-82, there were no more 351s in half-tonners like this. 302 was as big as it got. The mighty 9-inch Ford rear axle on display under this one. First seen in 1957. A tough axle and very convenient. You can change ratios by dropping out the center, and seen in every high-performance Mustang.
Truck was new in Montana and one continuous ownership until now.
Boy, and you think about it, up in Montana, I wonder if it was like one of those ranch trucks where it was in a small location and, you know, just shuttled maybe back and forth from here, or maybe a vacation truck, so they didn't use it a lot. But the fact that it's not rusty, that's pretty impressive for that country.
Now, when we talk about 4-speed transmissions in pickup trucks, we're not talking about close ratios or anything like that. These generally have a very low first gear, which is known as a granny gear, which allows the truck to chug along at like 5 or 10 miles an hour in the event that you're, loading it or have to go down the road slowly. But again, the 4-speed, the first gear in these things is ultra low. 4th speed is not overdrive, so it's basically a workabout kind of transmission.
Well, congratulations to those folks right there. And the Summit Racing Soul sticker goes on. Away that goes for $27,500 for that 1979 Ford F-150 pickup truck. A little earlier, we previewed this car for you, a 1957 Ford Fairlane Sunliner convertible.
Wow, and what a beauty. Boy, Ford, they knew how to do these two-tones, and not only the two-tone paint, but all of that gold color work between the stainless steel moldings down the front fender and the door. Pretty presentation here.
Neat details about 1957 was the debut of the forward hinged hood. This hood actually opens like that. It was a safety feature, but it also played into the Thunderbird for 1955, 6, and 7. Here we go. And there it is like that. It comes up. Yeah, well, anyway, yeah, there we go, like so. And this is the 292, which is the Y-block engine, but we don't want to confuse the Sunliner convertible with the Skyliner retractable hardtop, which is similar to look at, but actually a very different car.
Now here's an interesting touch. Look at the steering column. And in front of the shifter, right there, strapped to the steering column, is the registration for the car from I don't know how many years ago. Some people kept them there.
1957, again, first year for the 9-inch rear axle. That refers to the diameter of the ring gear, and absolutely this one under here. This is a time when the 6 cylinders, the V8s, even the supercharged 557s would have had the same 9-inch rear axle. There's no small 6-cylinder axle. They all had the big one. And those axles are often scavenged by hot rodders, so it's nice to see it here in the original location.
The tail lights and the angle of the fin, very much the same as the 57 Thunderbird. Ford at that time really believed in commonality across its car lines, so you'd know you were looking at a current year Ford, whether it was a two-seat Thunderbird or whether it was a full size.
$25,000, that's the hammer price for that 1957 Ford Fairlane Sunliner.
Fairlane was the name of Henry Ford's estate in Dearborn, Michigan, and they lent it to that car. All right, so Rick, is the Roy Rogers car still at the top of the chart?
Absolutely, $65,000.
Every singing cowboy had a sidekick, and Roy Rogers' sidekick was named, anybody? Pat Brady. And what was the name of Pat Brady's horse?
I remember, well, there was the Jeep Nellie Bell.
That's right. He didn't have a horse. He couldn't ride a horse. So
I'm trying to think of his horse.
You're right. He had a Jeep. Sorry, it was a trick question.
Well, I almost fell into it, I guess. All right, now for something completely different. Check this out, a 1971 Citroën DS21.
Well, DS is a bit of a pun. In French, DS means princess. DS, princess, get it? Well, these are also known as the Atomic Cockroach because of the bizarre styling, but these were made between 1955 and 75, and this 1971 is a great example of the breed. These are really strange cars. They have a hydropneumatic suspension, which means that you can actually jack the car up and have it sit on 3 wheels and change one of the wheels if you need to. Very interesting, very advanced, very French design.
I believe this was probably the first car since the Ruxtons and other cars of the 1920s to have movable headlights, in that the inner pair of lights would actually steer with the car. Today's automobiles and a lot of pickup trucks will have auxiliary lights that when you turn the wheel a certain amount, they will come on. But in this case, they actually swiveled and were tied into the steering.
That's right, Mike. They can turn up to 80 degrees right and left with the tires. And these are very dependent, these cars, on hydraulic pumps. The same hydraulic pump operates the suspension, the clutch, and the brakes, and the steering. But just a bizarre-looking creature this is. There are some great 1/25th scale models of these, actually. Shop around if you can't afford the real thing. A lot of good plastic kits.
Look at it, what an aerodynamic shape. I mean, so forward-thinking between the body shape and whether you like the looks of it or not. It is sleek, and then, of course, that self-leveling suspension. Very interesting car.
Some of the styling touches were actually pretty functional. Look at this kind of jet plane looking thing here. Well, instead of being a jet exhaust, that's the turn signal way up high where it's very visible.
Let's take a peek inside the boot and see what's going on here. Now look at that. How deep is that? Now, these are front-wheel drive, so there's no rear axle hump to take up space. What a functional thing this is. This is the gas tank, I think. Is that the gas tank? Could it be? Anyway, very deep trunk. Awesome. Just good design.
I'll tell you what, you do not see a lot of these in the United States. Over in Europe, yeah, you know, there's still plenty around. But in the United States, this is a rare bird to see driving down the road.
The steering wheel has only one spoke. And that was so you had a clear view of the gauges pretty much wherever that wheel was turned. Interesting.
One detail, too, is if you get a flat tire on the back, there's no real way to get the wheel off. Well, you remove the rear fender. Quite simply, with that single bolt right there, you take that off, the fender comes off, and you can access the lug nuts to get that wheel off of there. But just interesting design, streamlining, taken to the extreme.
19 is with Butch. Everybody else is out of 20. And now 20, 20,000, 20.
And I guarantee you there were a lot of people with flat tires cursing that design at some point in time.
Weird yet wonderful. Citroen would go on to build very successful rally cars, race cars, but boy, this was one of a kind.
$19,500, the hammer price. Congratulations to those folks right there. Let's check in with Tyler Hoover.
I'm with lot 184.1. It's a 1974 Chevy pickup truck. I may have spoken a little too soon when it comes to square bodies. And certainly, this thing is awesome. It is a 1-ton, 4-wheel drive, manual transmission, but a brush fire truck where you could individually go out to the field and you see this massive pump on the front, put it in the water and, well, put out the fires. And actually the 454 controls this massive pump right here. You see this is actually connected to the crankshaft on the 454 V8 engine. You engage the clutch very slowly and then you have a working pump and put out fires. Now the seller tells me that there's people interested in this just for fun, but also people that want it on the ranch to work with. This is something you actually put in the garage relatively, even though it's very tall, and used to put out fires because they're so remote. There's not really any opportunity for a firefighter to save them if something pops up quickly.
All right, thanks a lot, Tyler. By the way, if you're into fire engines, here in Phoenix, we have the Hall of Flame Firefighting Museum. It's a collection of firefighting trucks, vehicles, hand carts used throughout the course of time, stuff like this. It is the best firefighting museum in the country for firefighting vehicles. All right, up on the block right now, we get a 2002 Pontiac Trans Am. It's a collector's edition convertible.
Yeah, sadly, I think Jimmy Durante lent his schnoz to this thing. The Ram Air nose on this is not to my taste, but they only made 2,000 of these final collector edition convertibles, and this one has only 3,000 miles.
Yeah, and the word final is very appropriate, Mike. This is the final version of the Firebird ever. Also the final edition for this generation of the F platform, the Camaro and Firebird and convertible. So yeah, if you want a Firebird, this is your final opportunity.
There's always those discussions that go on. Will Pontiac ever come back? Is there a possibility? Not likely, but everybody can hope.
Well, worse than that, Rick. The A-body platform that is underneath every Camaro is scheduled to sunset in 2024, and the magazines are saying that GM has not announced a replacement for the current Camaro. It may go the way of the bird.
We'll find out soon, hopefully. We're going to take a quick break here at Barrett-Jackson in Scottsdale. Don't go too far. Plenty of cars left across the block. Well, just moments ago, this 1972 Chevy K10 custom pickup truck crossed the block. Before it was over, it had hammered sold for $50,000, making it the number 5 sale of the day so far. Beautifully done, 400 cubic inch small block V8 engine, all kinds of custom work. Once again, $50,000 the final price. Up on the block now, a 2013 Camaro SS convertible. The current bid, $28,000.
These were popular cars. Just about 95,000 of these sold and were built in 2013. But with that said, only 8,437 had the 6-speed manual behind the 6.2-liter engine. That meant 426 horsepower standard.
So when you first saw these, it was in the original Transformer movie. When they rebirthed it, the Michael Bay film. I was actually working at the Chevrolet dealer at the time when that movie came out. Everybody called every single day, wanted to get one of these. It was years away. The phone rang off the hook. I couldn't sell them.
That's how to prime the pump. Jim did it well.
$30,000 for the 2013 Camaro SS 6-speed. All right, this auction is a logistical adventure to get underway. It's not a 3-ring circus, it's a 12-ring circus. So let's learn more about that with Christian Murphy and Craig Jackson.
Craig, what goes into planning an event of this scale and scope?
You know, it takes a lot of logistics. We've done it for many years. There's a lot of thought that goes into building the site and building the site safely. And now with COVID adding, how do we move air? How do we do all of those other things so you can have that amount of people in a safe manner? Working with the city, we put a lot of protocols into how do we move air? How do we purify air? We're also pumping in all fresh air, millions of cubic feet of fresh air. Our inside covered area is about 1.2 million square feet. So we have room to spread out, and that's been with COVID, trying to spread everybody out, having this size, having the ability to open sidewalls and bring airflow through.
We're in the salon here, the highest value cars, but of course there are literally thousands of cars here, a couple of thousand. How many cars on site, and how do you manage the vehicles?
Well, that's a whole nother project. And any day we'll do 150 drivers. 1,877 cars at last count.
Wow. How many people do you expect to see through the gate on an event like this?
Well, 2020 we did 320,000 through. Now that's over the 9-day period. So we try to work on staggering the days and not having everybody show up for just the prime time. 40,000 people on the early days, 60,000 on the big days.
Well, congratulations on all you've done. Well done.
Well, thank you. It's a logistical feat.
Yeah, not easy to accomplish because it's so much more than just an auction. It's also a lifestyle event. You have all these things going on, from the auction to the manufacturers to the vendors to literally restaurants that are built on site here at Westworld. So getting it all done, making it happen seamlessly, well, it is quite an achievement. You got to give a lot of credit to all the people behind the scenes that make it possible. Up on the block right now, a 1976 Firebird Trans Am. This one, current bid is $39,000.
Well, some cool things on this one, but this is kind of an unusual thing that hides in plain sight. The B80 drip rail moldings, which are optional, and they kept water from coming down on your shoulder, but there they are. That was actually optional. But again, this 1976 is the final year for the round top shaker, none of which were actually functional. This has been cut for use.
Once again, $39,000, the hammer price on that 1976 Firebird Trans Am. Up on the block right now, we've got a 1955 first-year Ford Thunderbird, first year of the Baby Birds.
Well, here it is. You know, the base price on these was $2,944. 16,155 were made, and all of them had a V8. Obviously, the 292 V8. This one does have power steering, which was a $91 option. Manual steering was standard, and of course, also power brakes. Both of those things optional. But here's the power steering pump right there. Again, made it a little easier to three-point turn.
Now, when I first started coming to Barrett-Jackson's as a kid, almost 20 years ago, there seemed to be rows and rows of these beautifully restored examples, and now you don't see as much, I feel like, especially, the early ones like this. I wonder why.
Well, there are trends. Things get hot and cool, and the Minter family is kind of the gold standard in these Baby Birds, and I'm sure they're still very active. I bet we'll see some Minter cars this week, but it is funny. There are flavors and stuff. And, for everybody who buys a truck or a Restomod, well, maybe it's one fewer person to buy a Baby Bird, but there's plenty to go around.
And you have to remember, when this came out in 1955, it literally, compared to the Corvette, blew it out of the water. I mean, this was so successful. The sales numbers were off the chart. And as successful as it was in 55, 56, and 57, they realized they needed to change, and they got rid of the Baby Bird concept and went to what we call the Square Bird, the four-seater, in 1958. So this 3-year period, from 55 to 57, what an iconic look.
Speaking of the number 4 on the floor, well, you couldn't get a 4-speed manual in a Thunderbird as sporty as they were. Rather, a 3-speed manual, or for an extra $178, the Ford-O-Matic automatic, which we have here. If you ask me, give me a stick shift in one of these things any day, but again, this one's an automatic.
But you got to remember, this was not designed to be a sports car. This was designed to be a personal luxury car, and they think that the people who were buying them, they didn't want to mess with a stick shift. They wanted to cruise and enjoy. Obviously, they were successful back then. $31,000, the hammer price in that 1955 Ford Thunderbird. Let's head out to the McGuire staging lanes. We're going to check in with April Rose.
Well, this is a Thunderbird as well, but it's a 1958 Thunderbird, and she wasn't born this way, I gotta tell you. Her name is Copper Caballero, and up front, check this out. Custom grille, almost looks like an alien species up here, and all this beautiful pinstriping. This is one of a kind, just truly a beautiful ride. And check out that engine in there, man. Oh baby. That's an original 352 with custom chrome touches, chrome air cleaner, chrome valve covers, automatic trans, chrome custom hubcaps. You got custom taillights, trunk. Wait a minute, come on back. You gotta check out this inside perfect off-white pearlescent and copper ember glow interior, GM sparkle carpet. I mean, the detail in this copper finish is art. Now, DeBrule, I gotta ask you, could you pinstripe anything this beautiful? Do you have a steady hand?
That is not me. You know, that Von Dutch pinstriping, it is something to behold. The ability to do that is truly amazing. Thanks a lot, April. We really appreciate that. Look forward to seeing that cross the block very soon. In the meantime, yep, the sun has gone down, but the party goes on here at Barrett-Jackson. You know, sometimes it just seems like it's all a blur as we sit here at Barrett-Jackson, all moving so fast. And then we'll look back and think about the spectacular moments. Think back to the 50 years of spectacular moments that we've seen here at Barrett-Jackson. Up on the block right now, this is a car that April previewed, and I gotta say, personally, I love this. It's an old school custom style.
Well, there's two things going on here. First up, it's the 4-seat Thunderbird, which replaced the Babybird, and sales exploded in 1958. But secondly, it's a custom. The fellow named Larry Watson in Southern California kind of pioneered the panel painting and the effect that we see here. It's a very nice tribute to Larry Watson's paint style.
Beautiful hand pinstriping here. This kind of not lace painting, but spider webbing that goes on throughout. Note the headlights. They are British. They're Lucas flamethrowers. Very popular among hot rodders in the 50s and 60s.
Now, 1958 was kind of an interesting year. There was an air suspension that was rumored and planned for the Thunderbird. Never happened, but to make way for it, Ford designed in a coil spring rear suspension. Well, when it didn't occur, for 59, they reverted to leaf springs in the back. So 58 is the only year for coil springs in the back of your Thunderbird, which actually makes it a lot easier to add air suspension today.
Look at that big rear window and how there is no wraparound for the glass. You don't need it, because the C-pillar is very, very thin. You don't have quite 360-degree vision, but nearly so.
You know, Mike, to your point about recurring styling themes at Ford, this box top first seen here in 58 would reappear as late as 1961 on full-size Fords, you know, and it's cool. Again, you know, breeding familiarity in a car line from top to bottom is a great way to, you know, grow customer base and loyalty.
And the Lincoln Continental as well in the very end, just before it comes onto the Elwood Engel version.
Note the dashboard and the binnacle for the driver and the shape of the glove box. Where would we see that again? In the Ford Mustang. Almost 10 years later.
And it's beautiful how those forms are continued all the way through to the deck lid. If you look at it, some, you know, design and style. The more you look, the more you see.
Right. If we just center up right here on the middle of the trunk, you see that line goes all the way through and is picked up at the dash. Cool.
$38,000, nicknamed the Copper Caballero, 1958 Thunderbird, one-of-a-kind custom. Away it goes. And if you want to see all of the cars that are scheduled to cross the block, you just have to go to Barrett-Jackson.com. The docket, that's what we call the list of cars, is there, and you can see not just the cars that are yet to cross the block, but you can see the prices on the cars that have already crossed the block. Once again, Barrett-Jackson.com. 1961 Olds Dynamic 88 convertible.
Well, 1961 was the year that Oldsmobile dealers had something else to offer beyond these full-size, the Olds F85, the compact, the senior compact. But again, this was the full-size GM car and all of its power. The two-tone trim we see on this is reminiscent of the old Starfire, but on the Starfire, which was a high-level car, it would have been a stainless steel brushed insert. But on this one, the two-tone pays tribute to that.
I just love what all of the Detroit 3 did with two-tones in and through the 1960s. I don't recall red over silver being a factory combination at this time, but it sure looks good here. Brand new white convertible top on this one, new alloy wheels. This is so sharp.
I'm going to say owners of GM or Chevrolet 454 SS 1500 pickup trucks will recognize these wheels. They were also used there. And they happen to have the same bolt pattern, 5-on-5, I think it is, as these big Oldsmobiles. And keep in mind, too, that if you look at these, the originals, you'll find left-hand lug nuts on, I believe, the driver's side. So left-hand lug nuts were not just a Chrysler thing. Full-size Olds and Pontiacs also had them at this point in time.
So something that is collectible in its own right are these dealer emblems. They were inexpensive casting. They have two studs that you actually have to drill through the panel to be able to attach them. Most cars now, those are gone, but they are collectible, and some dealers are even redoing them and bringing them back. So Renner Oldsmobile, I guess that's where this one was first delivered new.
Nice not to see an LS. This has the original 394 with a 4-speed hydromatic. You might say, what? 4-speed hydromatic? You mean an LS or 4L80? No, no, no. The original hydromatic actually had 4 gears, and top gear was 1-to-1, but had a 397 first gear, which was really good for acceleration. Drag racers love these 4-speed hydromatics.
Well, and somebody just loved that to the tune of $34,000 for a 1961 Oldsmobile Dynamic 88 convertible. As he signs his paperwork, agrees to pay a 10% buyer's premium. We're going to take a quick break here from Barrett-Jackson. Get towards the end of our coverage, a couple more hours left, but what a day it's been so far here in Scottsdale. As great as the vehicles are here in Scottsdale, there's nothing wrong with making some upgrades, which is why you're going to want to visit Summit Racing Equipment. Parts for modern, classic cars, off-road, street performance, tools, and shop equipment. Summit Racing Equipment, powered by enthusiasts. Up on the block right now, a 1971 Chevy C10 custom pickup truck.
Well, the consignor says that this one's powered by a 402 cubic inch V8. 402, a Chevy 402. It's what we know as the 396. Yes, the 396 actually displays 402 cubic inches, but be that as it may, Big Holly carburetor and nitrous oxide systems boost on this one, which is off to its new home.
Off to its new home for a hammer price of $33,500. The 1971 Chevy C10, all that red rolling off into the distance. A little smaller rolling up behind it, a little older, a 1932 Ford Model A Custom Roadster.
Well, there's a lot going on here, including the fact that Ford never made any Model A's in 1932. 31 was the last year. 32 would have been the Model B, but there is not a 1932 part on this car. This has all been custom built from the ground up, and it's no 1-800 street rod. It is all name brand equipment that's in this one. Beautiful Hugger orange paint, coilovers, and it looks as good underneath as it does up on top. Here's a look from our chassis cam. Boy, that has all the look of a brand new build right there. Even the drive shaft is painted bright orange.
Yeah, according to the consignor, the official name for that is Sunset Pearl Orange. And like you say, they've done it up on top and down below. And, you know, at the cost of paint these days, custom paint is getting pretty expensive. So there's a lot of money that went into painting this.
I like the way the taillights have been French tier flush with the roll pan at the bottom, a Jaguar-style independent rear suspension, coilovers there, and the inboard disc brakes. And again, the typical Roadster driving position where the driver's knees are right up there in the steering wheel. Good thing that's a tilt column. Porsche-style shifter.
This is now the #1 sale of the day. We're at $67,000. Roy Rogers, you moved into second place. And I don't think we're done. Now we're at $70,000.
I am not surprised, Rick. You could not build this car for the current bid price. Beautifully done.
And like you say, it's not just that it's a series of parts that have been put together. It's a series of the right parts put together the right way. It looks right. It's built right.
Now look below the gauges where that glove box looking lid is down. That's so that the ignition and all the switches could be hidden kind of in plain sight when that is closed. Very cool.
Tell you what, it is the simplicity of these old roadsters that is so nice. You know, when you take the fenders off, you shorten them, you lower them, everything is just right on these. And yes, you know, you can buy fiberglass bodies and get the look. Fine with me. It looks great.
You know, most of these are automatic transmissions, but this is a genuine 3-pedal car. A stick with a clutch. I like this.
It's got Wilwood brakes. This is a 6-speed transmission underneath. All kinds of nice stuff. I'll tell you what, that is now the #1 sale of the day for Tuesday here at the Barrett-Jackson Collector Car Auction, $73,000. So let's take a look at our top 5. Like I said, the car that was once owned by Roy Rogers, that Lincoln, now in second place at $65,000. You want to break into the top 5, it's going to take at least $57,000 to do it, because that's the price of that '78 Pontiac Trans Am that was sold just a little bit earlier. Up on the block right now, a 1958 Ford Fairlane 500 Skyliner retractable hardtop.
Well, you don't see many with air conditioning, but here's one. Power steering, power seat, power windows. A 332 V8 with a 3-speed automatic transmission. And another one of those great mid-50s Detroit two-tones. This separated by the gold-looking trim, surrounded by stainless, setting the blue off from the white. This is just gorgeous. This looks like a fresh, brand new build right here.
You know, you think about it, Mike, this car is just over the top in every way. Not just the way it looks on the outside, but having that retractable hardtop, the full-size hardtop that folds up into the trunk. This was not just styling, it was engineering as well in the late 50s.
Miles of wiring go into this because the trunk lid here does not extend to the back. It actually hinges this way so that the top can do its thing. And as on several modern retractable hardtops, the roof is split into 2 sections. So this front section will fold under so that it will all fit inside that trunk, which does have a dedicated bin in the center for luggage. Certainly not the full-size trunk that you would expect in a coupe, but there is storage back there.
Well, I tell you what, personally, I think this is a screaming deal right now. When you look at both the appeal of this car, the visual, as well as the engineering, the fact that it's a full-size retractable hardtop, boy, what a car.
Rick, they didn't look this good in the showroom in 1958. This is beautifully done to a very, very high standard.
Yeah, according to the consignor, had a complete frame-off restoration to get it to this level.
I'm out.
You know what I can't believe? It's only Tuesday, and look at the quality of cars we're seeing across the block. Like that Street Rod, like this Fairlane.
Absolutely. Currently at $37,000, and well, that doesn't even come close to getting into our top 10 at this point. And that's what's going to hammer down. And I have to say, personally, I think it's a great deal. I think driving that down the street, driving that to a car show, looks absolutely beautiful. $37,000. Now, let's head over to the Road and Track Midway and Tyler Hoover.
Well, speaking of quality, this thing is really, really nice, and it was designed to replace the cars that are surrounding it, the Porsche 911. It's a 1988 928 S4, and it is a gentleman's express cruiser, like I said, designed to replace the 911, but that didn't happen. Now, they made many improvements over the years. The S4 is one of the good ones, because you get the 4-speed instead of the 3-speed. You get a higher horsepower engine. But my favorite feature of all 928s has to be the headlights, which they pop up even though they're exposed. It's just a really, really cool feature. Of course, under the hood, I really like the presentation of these as well. 315 horsepower on that engine, and you can see the intakes. Really gorgeous. This one only has 40,000 miles on it, so it is a very nice, well-preserved original example.
All right, thanks a lot, Tyler. Up on the block right now, this is a truck we previewed for you, a 1959 Studebaker Scotsman.
This is a beautiful, no expense spared restoration of a great pickup that is seldom seen restored. This is the way they look new. There was no chrome on the front of this truck at all. All these trucks got an ivory colored front bumper, and often the grill was also done in ivory. Here, it is done in body color. This was one of the first pickup trucks to have a curved glass windshield. They were more expensive to make than just 2 flat glass panels with a spine down the center. No expense spared. 6 cylinders, 3 on the tree shifter, and right here, this is an aftermarket turn signal indicator because apparently they didn't come with signals from the factory. So yeah, that's kind of cool here. So 3-pedal truck. So this is an aftermarket turn signal system. No radio. You notice the interior is mostly all steel. Only the seats were covered in fabric or vinyl. Even the interior door panels were metal. This was pretty Spartan.
This was designed to be a low-cost truck in 1959, and they cut every corner they possibly could. $23,000, that's the price for that Studebaker Scotsman. Don't see a lot of those here at Barrett-Jackson. It'll be cool to see that at your local car show.
All right, get ready to have your jaw dropped because they sell automobilia at Barrett-Jackson before they sell cars. How about an Edsel Service neon clock? $28,750. That's only 3rd place. In 2nd place, an extremely rare Musco oil gas globe, $57,500. And topping them all was this neon Greyhound bus station sign. $149,500 was the hammer price. Wow.
And my understanding is there are going to be more $100,000 automobilia pieces going across the block during the course of this week. So, like I said, be prepared to have your jaw drop even further. Well, a little bit earlier, Tyler Hoover previewed this 1974 custom fire truck, and now it has appeared up on the block.
Well, this one's ready to go to work. Brush truck number 59. This even has a system whereas the amount of water that's carried on board can be shot out from both sides of the truck in order to handle brush issues. I don't know what you do with this once you put it in your collection. I guess just about anything you want, but it has a history. Red Rock Hose and Ladder Company, organized in 1901. The truck itself has only 32,000 actual miles and comes here from Colorado, ready to go back to work.
And once again, this appeals to people who collect this type of thing. Former firefighters love having this kind of stuff. But if you do have a ranch and you do need to pump some water every now and then, this would be a fun thing to have. Not just another pump truck. You got something that looks cool out there. And I tell you what, at $22,000, the current bid, it's a deal.
Comes complete with ladders, hose, nozzles, ready to go.
The idea behind this is it's not a full-size fire truck. It's smaller. The idea is that you could go into certain areas that you can't get a large truck into. So you could get in, get the water, do whatever you need to do, and get back out without having to worry about having your big truck get stuck. And I mentioned a little bit earlier, there is the Hall of Flame Museum here in Phoenix. It's the world's largest firefighting equipment museum in literally the world. And it is spectacular with all the firefighting trucks, the equipment. They've got stuff that goes back hundreds and hundreds of years before there were any mechanical stuff being pulled by hand that they were using to fight fires with. If you get a chance, you're in Phoenix, check out the Hall of Flame Museum. Well, there goes $32,000 for that 1974 K30 custom fire truck known as Brush 59. Let's check in with Christian Murphy.
Fellas, you know how they say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas? Well, I think with Lot 216, a 2012 Fisker Karma, we're about to find out. For those with a good memory, of course, you may remember the Mac Miller Fisker Karma, the same model, the same year, which sold in Las Vegas in June last year. On a sleepy old Thursday, it made $165,000. Now, this vehicle, of course, it doesn't have the same celebrity connection. but it is a real beauty. Dual electric engines deliver 405 horsepower. It's got a 2-litre backup engine here, and on the inside, well, check out this really nice grey and blue interior. And let me just show you the back here because it's a better view. The back seats there, really tight and wrap around. It's absolutely superb. And on the outside here, well, up on top, solar panelled roof. It's just a wonderful state-of-the-art car, and of course it's going to be the first hybrid I think that we see cross the block here in Scottsdale later in the week. The 918 Spider and the McLaren P1, both hypercar hybrids. I'm not saying that this is going to make the same sort of money, but in Vegas, well, it certainly surprised us, and who knows?
Well, we're going to find out once again as the week goes by. That Henrik Fisker design, very unique. The car itself, very unique as well. And up on the block right now, 1979 Dodge D150 Adventurer. It's a little red express pickup truck.
Well, this was a factory dress-up kit, Little Red Express. You know, a lot of drag race touches here, and the big diesel-looking tailpipes, and even the wood grain along the bed. This was a factory dress-up and performance package that you could order from your local Dodge dealer in 1979. 360 V8 automatic, this one with less than 38,000 miles, and all redone in August 2020. So very, very factory is this one.
Yeah, they didn't have to have catalytic converters on this. They got around it kind of like a little loophole, and as a result, they got a little more power out of this. Now, it wasn't huge power. Got to remember, this was the late 70s. But all things considered, it was pretty darn nice for its day. And, you know, this package was issued in 78 and came out in 79 as well. You know, they only made, I think, about 5,000 of these in 1979. Originally born February 23rd, 1980 is when, well, that's when the first owner took possession of this. So it had been built in 79, but the first owner didn't actually claim possession until the beginning of the following year.
I think it's so cool that Dodge as a brand would do this and would come up with, you know, a truck with a lot of street cred. Like this, street credentials. No, these didn't have a ton of power in 1979. It was the emissions era, but this was a really sharp little big rig.
Yeah, and for those who had been following racing, you know, Little Red Express was something special. It was a cool truck, and so they just took that styling, those colors, and had fun with it. Made it an option for their trucks. This one only has 39,000 miles on the odometer, so it's been well cared for the entire time. And you know, the thing is, I don't think this has been restored. I think this is actually, they say it's been stored for the last 3 decades.
They said freshened in 2020, but using all OEM or NOS, new old stock parts. So yes, very faithful to the way it was built. Have you tried to buy a new pickup truck lately? You know what you get for 50 grand? You don't get this.
You made that point earlier, Mike, and I think it's so true. When you look at what the cost is now of used vehicles, because they've gone through the roof because of the supply chain issues, buying one of these actually makes a lot of sense. $55,000 for a 1979 Dodge D150 Little Red Express with less than 40,000 miles on the odometer. Let's check out the McGuire staging lane. Understand that's where April Rose is standing by.
Yes, and if you wanted muscle in 1976, this was it. 1976 Pontiac Trans Am. I mean, you got the 455 V8. That's the last year of it. 4-speed trans, only 54,000 miles. And of course, I got to bring you to the star of the show up front, that $58 option. Now, DeBrule, do you call it the Screaming Chicken, the Rising Phoenix? I mean, is it the Thunder Chicken? On the order sheet, they called it the Available Giant Firebird. I mean, what do the cool kids say, DeBrule?
I call it the Screaming Chicken. I mean, come on. And I say that lovingly. It's not something I use derogatory, you know, and you look at the battle within Pontiac that they took to get that and how it grew over time until it became the massive Screaming Chicken.
You know that the Firebird, or the Phoenix, is probably the only icon out of mythology I can think of that lent its name to 3 different cars. The 1960 Dodge Phoenix, a full-size car, the 1980 or so Pontiac Phoenix, the X-Body Compact, and then the Firebird.
Technically, you could almost say the Thunderbird as well.
Absolutely. And when you go to get your Hertz car at the Phoenix Airport, there's that huge mural that was part of the Phoenix Airport when it was brand new of the Thunderbird rising from the ashes.
$35,000 for that 1932 Ford 3-window street rod, built just 9 years ago. Beautifully done, and away it goes. We're going to take a break as well. We'll come back. Well, night has fallen here in the Scottsdale area, but there is still so much going on. Cars out on the road, cars under the tents, people looking at the cars, bidders buying the cars. It's all here in the Phoenix area. We're celebrating 50 years of this great auction. Up on the block right now, a 1967 Chevy C10 Custom.
This one's had a 5.3-liter LS swap from a much newer Chevy pickup, riding on big hoops. Those look about 22s, but otherwise unrestored. Now, we call all of this patina, just signs of use and age. And in coinage and fine silver, patina is just fine. It does not detract from value. So this one's ready to go to work, ready to go haul, or if you want to restore it, you could. But I think what it would cost to redo the bodywork on this truck and paint it would be money you'd never get back. So buy it and enjoy it just the way it is.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is really a resto mod, because you've got that 5.3-liter LS engine with a modern transmission and a beat-up body. So it's really got an interesting look to it.
Detail is, of course, the first year for 67, 68, and they have a sloped front on them. But again, this is absolutely a short wheelbase. Nice.
$41,000, the hammer price on that 1967. From 1967, we're going to move forward 2 decades. 1987, in this place, it's a K5 Blazer Custom.
Well, the K indicates 4-wheel drive, and the 5 in GM parlance indicates quarter-ton, which was more or less the rated capacity of these Blazers, versus, say, a K10, which would have been a 4-wheel drive pickup. But this one, other than the lift kit, looks like it's restored pretty much to stock.
Yeah, the Blazer arrived in 1970 as basically a removable top SUV, but a subtle change happened in 1976. The cab grew a fixed roof and used the same door as a Chevy pickup truck with a full door frame versus the cut down. That was all about getting anchor points for the shoulder harnesses. But again, we can see the full door frame, which is something that arrived in 1976 on Blazers and was continued to the very end.
Early presence of the Silverado name on the Blazer and on Chevy pickups, not as a model yet, but as a trim package. It would later become, of course, the name for all Chevy pickups. Now they're all Silverados.
This one has the predicted 350 engine, which is the original style, Gen 1 Chevy small block, and or 5.7 liters, but not an LS. Again, it's the original type engine it came with. It has had a lift kit. Clearly, we can see the lift blocks between the leaf springs and the axle at the rear, and these are leaf springs up front, so similar stuff is found in the nose.
These will seat 5 people in relative comfort. However, the fairly short wheelbase of the Blazer gives it a much choppier ride than the longer wheelbase Chevy pickups.
$44,000 for that 1987 Chevy K5 Blazer. All right, you want something a little more modern? How about a 1988? And by the way, if you want to see the full docket of all the cars, including this 1988 K5 Blazer, all you have to do is go to Barrett-Jackson.com. You can see all the list of all the cars and what they have already sold for when they've already crossed the block. You can dream about what you might bid on if you decide to. Maybe do an online or a phone bid, or better yet, just come on in to Westworld here in Scottsdale. So this is a 1988. It's a K5 Blazer custom SUV.
more of the same. It's very much stock under the hood, and that means 350 with a 4-barrel carburetor. And actually, this is a throttle body fuel injector. There you go. But underneath that air cleaner, this here is the duct for the cold air system, which draws cool air from a hole in the grill. And some would say, wow, just like an Olds W30 from 1969. Well, yeah, cold air is denser air, and it's better for horsepower and also for fuel economy.
I love the two-tones on these trucks. I just think that's just such a cool look, and I wish the lines of the current Silverado lent themselves to this kind of paint treatment, but there's an awful lot going on there. It's pretty busy. We've tried laying it out without success.
This does have some aftermarket wheels. We can see them here. One thing we look at here is sort of a beadlock look. These look like fasteners, but it's purely aesthetic. But an actual beadlock rim is something you can get on a brand new Jeep or Dodge Ram truck now. 35-inch wheels. And Bronco, I believe, also has. But these have the look of a beadlock without the function.
So at the back of the roof, there is an airfoil, and the reason for that is, without that airfoil, with the back window down, air that comes underneath the truck is going to come right back up and in. And the airfoil hopefully keeps that from happening and keeps that air clean.
$53,000 for a 1988 Chevrolet K5 Blazer Custom, slight custom, just slightly lifted, that 5.7-liter fuel-injected engine. All right, behind it, we're going to go way back to 1940. This is a Ford Deluxe convertible.
Well, in 1940, Fords came as standards or deluxes. Well, this one being a deluxe, we can tell it has chrome headlight surrounds. This one has a flat head, which was the optional engine. A 6-cylinder flat was also available. But this one has something kind of cool. Aftermarket, 2 Stromberg intake, kind of nice. Offenhauser aluminum cylinder heads. And again, those heads have a smaller combustion chamber, but a little higher compression. But you love those pair of Stromberg, what are they, 98s. Nice.
Love period speed equipment. That's the way to do it. Take that flathead and use what they would have used back in the day. That's my kind of hot rod.
This does have a column-shifted 3-speed manual transmission, and 1940 was the first year for a steering column mount versus the floor shifter seen in 1939 and earlier. The beauty of the column shifter, although it's not as sporty to drive, it allows 3 across seating up front without somebody getting their knees knocked around by a shift lever.
You know, they started using the Deluxe name just a couple years earlier. I mean, they'd actually been using the name since about 1930, but they made it its own model in 38. And the idea was, like you said, it was more upscale than the standard, but not quite at the Lincoln level. So it was its own model for a while.
The dual exhaust we see on this is not something that Ford ever offered. However, aftermarket kits from Edelbrock and Fenton would sell you a split manifold, which would then provide dual exhaust. The beauty of dual exhaust really is that each bank has its own dedicated tubing. There's less cross-talk, less back pressure, and more power. There's also more noise. But again, at Ford, they didn't see the value of it. The first dual exhaust Ford, I think, was the 1955 Thunderbird.
Well, we had bidders on the floor, bidders on the phone, everybody looking at that 1940 Ford Deluxe, but those are the folks that got it for $45,000. Nicely restored. A little bit earlier, April Rose previewed a 1976 Pontiac Trans Am, debated what we should call the screaming chicken on the hood, and here it's up on the block right now.
What beautiful car, 455, and of course black with gold. We had a car across the block earlier that was the first to use this black and gold pinstripe scheme, the Lotus Europa, because the Lotus F1 cars were sponsored by John Player's Special Cigarettes in England. That's where that came from. And then it went to the Cosworth Vega, the JPS Capri, and eventually to the Trans Am.
The beauty of this one is the 455 on the side of that shaker. This is the final year, 1976, for the 455. And we see a W in the 5th spot of the VIN. Yep, it's a 455 car. Now, it's not a Super Duty, but plenty of torque. And I love the fact it's backed up by a 4-speed manual. This is the end of the real muscle car Trans Ams. The 400 and the 403 were okay, but the 455 is an actual torquing monster. The production, 1976, 44,114 Trans Ams were built, but only 7,099 got the 455. These are pretty uncommon.
And this one has survived with less than 55,000 actual miles on the clock.
1976, second year for the large wraparound rear window, first seen in 75. Before that, it would have been a smaller panel. But again, beautiful look. And most people think, well, all Firebirds had that. No, 1975 was the first year for it.
That engine turn dashboard, a feature of the Trans Am, and the Formula style steering wheel.
Now, so this one does not have the optional drip rail molding at the top of the roof up here along that area right there. You paid extra for that. And on a rainy day, yeah, you get water on your shoulder. But hey, what price style?
Yeah, there were only 7,000 of them made, and one of them just sold for $50,000 here at Barrett-Jackson. That means it is now in our top 10 sales of the day. Now, coming up, we've got a 1967, another Pontiac. This one's a GTO. All kinds of originality. It's got the Protecto plate, the warranty. It's even got the original owner's manual. All kinds of paperwork. We'll see it real soon. So many cars, so many trucks left across the block here at Barrett-Jackson in Scottsdale. The 50th anniversary celebration. Up on the block right now, big beast of a truck, a 1990 Chevy 3500 Custom.
Well, that's the big bruiser here. The 3500, the one-ton pickup with a crew cab, with a big lift, and a V8 overdrive ready to go.
Well, you see the 3.3 badge on the back. That's because it's 2 benches. So you have 3 seats in the front, 3 seats in the back. The length on this thing, 164.5 inches. So it is huge. Most crew cab pickup trucks, you know, they sacrifice the bed nowadays. This one, full-size 8-foot bed. It's just ridiculous. It must have taken forever to paint.
Point, Tyler. The 3+3 thing was a pretty smart marketing move. 1973 first year for that 2+2, but Mustang 2+2, et cetera, et cetera. Well, 3+3 is a great little thing. There's a logo on the rear, and we see it there, but really cool. But 1973 first year for these, and these were not custom Tier 2 things. These were built right at General Motors. Now, previously in the 60s and even in the 50s, there were quad cabs like this, but they were usually made by a conversion plant. But again, these came right off the Chevrolet line. It says the massive 14-bolt rear axle with a 10 3/4-inch ring gear, has a Dana 60 front axle, which is all factory equipment on this huge 3500 series one-tonner.
So when I was in high school in the Midwest in Kansas, these dominated the parking lots. They were cheap, they were easy to find, you know, a lot of farm kids getting hand-me-down trucks. Well, they're not those anymore. They're very, very collectible, and as we can see, $55,000 already.
55 bucks!
Yeah, but this looks so close to a medium-duty truck, a 4,500, 5,500 truck. There's just awful lot of heavy-duty parts here, way beyond what you might find in the regular catalog at your Chevy dealer. You'd have to go into a commercial dealer to get a lot of this.
Let's remember, too, the dually 3+3 was a possibility, which takes this even to a bigger level, a dual rear axle, but really heavy-duty.
Well, just missed making $60,000, $59,000 for that 1990 Chevy 3500 custom pickup truck. All right, let's check in with Christian Murphy.
Daniel Suarez, NASCAR driver in the Trackhouse team. Welcome to Scottsdale, Arizona. Now, I believe you're based now in Charlotte, but originally from Monterrey in Mexico, and you watched Barrett-Jackson growing up all your life. Is this your first time here?
My first time here, and yeah, like you say, you know, I was born and raised in Monterrey, Mexico. Normally, when you get into racing, it's because a family member, your father, your uncle, your grandpa, or somebody's been in racing. For me, it was a little bit different. My father has actually a restoration shop. So I grew up actually working with cars, you know, being a mechanic, and that led me into racing. So yeah, I love cars, I love racing, and of course, you know, Barrett-Jackson, it's been one of my dreams, you know, to come here one day, and today's the day, you know, very, very excited to finally make it happen. But yeah, I remember 15 years ago watching Barrett-Jackson during the weekends with my grandpa. So yeah, it's special.
Now, you've had a bit of a look around. What are your first impressions here at Barrett-Jackson? It's pretty big, right?
It's huge. You know, every single time that I get the opportunity to come to events like this, it's impossible to pick one. I mean, you see, oh my God, there is so many cool cars that just unbelievable. I'm having a blast.
Now, you've had a bit of a look around and you landed here. I found you here in front of the Volkswagen. I think there's a little personal connection there, right?
There is a little personal connection with these old air-cooled cars because, that's what my father actually builds the most, Beetles and Bosses and stuff like this. These are very fun cars, very easy to work cars. And, I have a few in Mexico. I restored them myself. And, I have a little bit of a personal connection with these cars.
Now, you're in Scottsdale because you're testing for the new NASCAR season about to kick off, but you've also taken on a new challenge, which is fronting your first television show. Tell us a little bit about United We Drive and why you felt it was important to be a part of it.
Yeah, I'm super excited with this new project with United We Drive, and the reason why I was super excited is because it's something that is me, how classic cars can connect people, how classic cars can bring people together. I can tell you how many experiences I have had in my life about how I can make friendships because classic cars, because restoring cars, because of looking for parts and stuff like that. So, I'm super excited for everyone to watch United We Drive because we had a lot of fun filming it.
Well, Daniel, we can't wait to see United We Drive. It's premiering on FYI next week. Wonderful to have you here in Scottsdale. Let's now take a quick little sneak peek.
Cars, it's a community, right? It's everybody.
People, they let their guard down when they see these cars.
The trucks are cool, but the people are cooler.
It's like an extended family.
It's just love, man.
People everywhere have a passion for classic cars.
Doesn't matter what car you're into, you're there because of classic cars.
These cars have a way of breaking down barriers.
I tell everybody it's deeper than cars. We're a brotherhood.
And bringing people together.
There's a huge need for camaraderie, true camaraderie again.
Regardless of your color, age, how much money you make, where you come from, we are all part of United We Drive.
There you have it, a wonderful sneak peek of United We Drive with Daniel Suarez. We're looking forward to that. Premiering next Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Time on FYI. Daniel Suarez, thank you very much. Have a great time here at Barrett-Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he was definitely a kid in a candy store walking around this place. Up on the block now, a 2006 Porsche 911 Carrera 4S Cabriolet.
The 997 version of the 911. The vehicle history report said this has had a sideswipe incident. It has 59,000 miles, Meridian metallic over dark gray.
Well, sideswipe aside, this is really when Porsche got their groove when it comes to the water-cooled 911. They got rid of the runny egg headlights and went back to round, which everybody wanted. The 4S is a really good one because it's got the 3.8-liter engine, higher horsepower, also all-wheel drive.
At this point in time, exhaust sound regulations in the States were actually relaxed, which allowed Porsche to equip the cabriolets with a louder exhaust than coupes. Hard to imagine, but true. But in Europe, they had to be muted down. But here in the States, these have a louder exhaust system. And this is the stock stuff, not Borla on this one.
$45,000. I think that one went over the internet for a new owner for the 2006 Porsche 911. Let's check in with April Rose.
This is the last of the first generation 1966 Chevy C10, and it's still got the original grille on it, looking good. Completely rebuilt, 350 with a turbo 400 trans, and I want you to see this custom interior. It is beautiful. It's got vintage air, Dakota digital gauges, and of course that oak wood steering wheel, painted dash, and go ahead and check out the back of that oak bed in the back, and it's finished in Mango Tango. What do you think about that, DeBrule?
I love it. Literally, that's the problem here. Every time I turn around, I see something else that I love or want or need. or more importantly, admire the craftsmanship that takes to build something like that. And it's truly great watching it all across the block here at Barrett-Jackson. Another car I love, the 928. Porsche 928 from 1989. Yeah, it's not the one Tom Cruise drove in Risky Business. It brought big bucks, but it's still a very nice car.
Yeah, that car in Houston brought almost $2 million, which we'll probably never see again with the 928. But I think it woke up enthusiasm for these, and you see a lot more interest in them recently.
Yeah, only 47,000 miles on that one, and it just sold for $41,000. For a long time, the price of those had languished, so it's nice to see them starting to come back. We're going to take a quick break. We will come back to the Barrett-Jackson Collector Car Auction here in Scottsdale right after this. Well, just a moment ago, this Pontiac GTO from 1967 crossed the block and sold for $70,000. All kinds of original paperwork, very cool, and it's now the #2 sale of the day. That top 5 is moving very, very quickly this evening. Up on the block right now, we got a 1953 MGTD Roadster.
Well, these were built between 1949 and 53, and something kind of cool on these is rack and pinion steering. If you look right here, you'll see the rubber boot right there. And yeah, 1953 rack and pinion steering, absolutely bone stock. And these, of course, were also fitted with 15-inch wheels, which gave them better handling than the 19-inch wire wheels seen on.
The TD is the second car in the series. The TC was the first one with those skinny wires that Steve spoke of. The TD wire wheels were never offered, only these Steelies. You see the gas tank hangs off the back in plain sight, just in front of the spare tire there. But these were the cars that Americans brought home from Europe after World War II, and these were the cars that started the sports car boom in the early 50s in the United States, including the founding of the Sports Car Club of America.
To your point, Mike, the Chevy Corvette was, well, Chevrolet's answer to this. So you might wonder, if you were cross-shopping an MGTD and a Corvette, what was the price difference? Well, a Corvette was $34.98. This was about half that much at $19.45. So you could buy 2 of these or 1 Corvette. What would you do?
1250cc 4-cylinder engine. This one is beautifully restored. You could not duplicate this car for the bid price.
You know, we also have an MGTC here on the property, and it's going to be selling before the week is out. It looks like this one just sold for $28,000 for that 1953 MGTD Roadster. Well, more than 1,800 amazing vehicles have made their way to Scottsdale safe and sound this week, and you know that wouldn't be possible without the unparalleled level of care and professionalism from Reliable Carriers. Reliable Carriers, vehicles taken seriously. Back up on the block right now, how about a Shelby GT, but this one's special here at Barrett-Jackson just because it's a Barrett-Jackson edition.
Well, this is one of 39, or sorry, there are 100 of these built, and this is a convertible. Something unique about these is obviously seen from the side. These sat lower by 1.5 inches compared to a standard Mustang GT, and something a little less is more. Well, Shelby removed the trunk spoiler from the GT to allow it to set apart from a GT Mustang. So it's an interesting car, but again, these were sold only in Arizona when new, but now they can be sold anywhere.
Yeah, there are only 39 of them built, and this was #2 of that run. And according to the consignor, it has less than 13,000 miles on the odometer. You know, you think about it, it's a combination of Ford, Barrett-Jackson, and Shelby. I remember when this was introduced here at Barrett-Jackson.
You gotta love those dual exhaust pipes, and that's factory stuff. I mean, I will say this, these are the Ford Racing upgrade exhaust, but the dual outlets coming to the bottom of the bumper like that, that's standard Mustang GT stuff, and no more messing around with single exhaust on Mustangs by this point in time. They all had duals. Very cool.
Yeah, there were a total of 100 Barrett-Jackson editions, but only 39 convertibles, so that makes this even more special.
a nice little detail. We'll open the door. I'll swap places with the cameraman. Down at the kit plates, the sill plates, we'll see the Barrett-Jackson logo with the serial number in place. Very, very cool. This one is a 5-speed manual. Keep in mind, the 6-speed manual was reserved for the GT500 Mustang, but 6-speed or 5-speed, they're both great.
I'll tell you what, $37,000 for a real deal Shelby Barrett-Jackson edition, one of only 39 convertibles made that year. I got to think that's a deal. Gentleman will sign the paperwork. Remember, he's got a 10% buyer's premium on top of the sticker price. Up on the block right now, a 1969 Chevy C10 custom pickup truck.
Well, custom is the word. This one has a 383. It's a 700 R4. It is a long bed, but keep in mind, there's a company called Brothers Trucks that they sell a short bed conversion. Yep, you cut the frame under the cab, buy a reproduction short bed box, and voila, your long bed is a short bed.
At the front, that's cool. You see how they've got that Chevy emblem at the very front? Not chromed on. It's just painted on. It's really cool that they put it up there. Nice touch.
Well, then it matches the paint treatment that runs all down the side. Sure is less expensive to paint that than it would be to create, let's say, stainless steel trim. But nicely done.
The wheelhouses inside of the bed, these are definitely fabricated. It's not factory stuff, but that's okay. I like how the floor is totally flat instead of the ribbed texture or surface that was Bowen stock, but a lot of custom going on here.
Tell you what, this is a really attractive looking pickup truck. I mean, just nicely done. The simple blue paint all the way around. The accents with the way it looks. This is nicely done.
Inside, there's the column-shifted 700 R4. Once again, the 700 R4 is a 4-speed with overdrive in top gear for nice, easy highway cruising.
That's a lot of truck for the money right there.
Honestly, if you're sitting in front of this truck and you're looking at it, it's got the right stance. The paint is great. I love that silver accent on the outside. Looking under the hood, it's got a great engine compartment. Nice, updated, modern seats inside. I agree with you, Mike. This is a lot of truck for this bid.
I like how the exhaust pipes exit through the sides of the bed, kind of like side exhaust. Here they are coming out through the body. Nice effect. And that's real. It's not a looker.
$33,000. Looks like it's sold over the internet. Congratulations to whoever got it. I'm a little jealous on that one. That's a truck I would actually love to have. All right, something coming up pretty soon. A 1969 Plymouth Sport Satellite Custom. It's got a big 440 cubic inch big block V8 under the hood. We'll see it very soon. Well, Barrett-Jackson is so much more than just the auction. It's also a great car event. When you first walk in, you go through the manufacturer's showcase. There's all kinds of cool stuff up there, things to see, things to look at. If you're a car person, this is absolutely the place to be here at Barrett-Jackson, the 50th anniversary celebration in Scottsdale. Up on the block right now, another Shelby Mustang, this one from 2007. Current bid, $37,000.
Well, these were built at Ford's Flat Rock, Michigan plant, right alongside V6 Mustangs. No trip to Shelby's Venice plant for these.
And the actual bid for that was $36,000. That's the winning price for a 2007 Ford Mustang Shelby GT500. Not a bad price for a real deal Shelby.
Powered by a 350 cubic inch V8 engine backed by an automatic
1972 Chevy C10 custom pickup truck rolling up on the block right now.
Well, final year for this generation, 67 through 72. Also the final year you could not get a 454 in a Chevy pickup truck, but that hasn't changed the situation here. Oh, that's great. It's a small block in this one. Anyway, Edelbrock 4-barrel carburetor, no fuel injection here, but lift kit, pretty typical of a Texas sky-high short bed pickup.
when we call a car that's got everything changed from chrome to black, we call it being murdered out. What do you call this one when it's all red?
Dip painted was one such term that was used in the late 80s, early 90s. I would imagine with these big, tall tires and the short wheelbase, the ride would be kind of punishing.
This one has a heavy-duty suspension upgrade. You can see the 14-bolt rear axle, and that's not something that would ever have been found in a half-tonner.
You know what's interesting is the roof lights. It's got some lights on top of the roof, and the way that they've been mounted onto the roof, they're not just slapped on. The roof has actually been raised to meet those lights. There's some serious work that went into mounting those lights on top of the roof.
You're right. Those are DOT clearance lights, Rick, and if a truck is above a certain width, certain capacity, those are required, even on brand new trucks, but no, they don't look like that.
So yeah, we could call it dip, but isn't this really deviled? $42,000 for that 1972 Chevy C10 custom pickup truck. Well, if you would like to try and sharpen your bidding skills and perhaps snag a great prize in the process, you'll want to play Fantasy Bid, brought to you by Dodge. And right now, April is going to preview one of the cars that you'll be predicting the price on.
Oh, Rick, I am in heaven right now. This is my favorite year of the Corvette, of course. The 63 split window. It's got the spine-divided window back there. Now, people didn't really like it because you couldn't get that good visibility out the rear window, but you made it rare because they only made it for that 1 year. Of course, you got the fuel door right in the center, so you never have to guess which side is the fuel tank on when you're getting out to fill her up. And, of course, they have the Stingray logo as 2 separate words in this generation. Now, this one has the matching numbers, 327, 340 horsepower, Muncie M20 trans, the knockoff wheels, finished in the famous Riverside red, and it's going across the block this Super Saturday.
All right, thanks a lot, April. You're right, that Corvette will cross the block this Saturday. All you have to do is go to BarrettJacksonFantasyBid.com or scan this QR code that you see right there to register to play. Who knows, if you play the game at all 4 of our Barrett-Jackson auctions this year, you could walk away with a 2022 Dodge Challenger. That is a prize worth winning. Up on the block right now, big money for a 1971 Ford Bronco Custom.
You know, we see these restored, we see them customized, and we see companies out in the showcase even building brand new 60s Broncos from scratch. And here we go. This thing looks all brand new, but it is a look that's 40 years old.
Thank you. Well, maybe 40 years old, but it is now $65,000 and slides into our top 5 sales here at Barrett-Jackson. In fact, it is tied at number 3. We got 3 vehicles that have managed to hit in that $65,000 range. Sticking with pickup trucks, we got a 1966 Chevy C10 Custom.
Yeah, I like this one. It has the big glass rear window, the style side, small block Chevy engine. Now, these are body on frame, and I love what they've done here. The under hood area has been sprayed to match the sort of turbine bronze exterior. Not something that was done at the factory, but very, very nice. Something worth pointing out, and I've said it once, I'll say it again, is the hoods on these were designed by a fellow named Tom Daniel, who, if you ever built a monogram model kit, you'll have understood his designs. But that right there, that flourish, was added by Tom Daniel, the designer of the Bagman, the Tarantula, the Bad News Dragster. So if you're a model builder in the 60s and early 70s, monogram models, Tom Daniel was the man. Still alive and well, TomDaniel.com.
The color is described as rust orange. That is kind of a joke. It's a really beautiful copper. And I love that they have taken bed liner and color matched it to the exterior of this truck. This has become very common and I think very appropriate, because you want to be able to use that pickup bed, but you got to be able to protect it from scratches, and that's what that bed liner does. And when it's color matched, it hides in plain sight.
one detail that separates Chevrolet pickups from Fords is the fact that Chevy used coil spring rear suspension, where at this point in time, Ford was still using leaf springs. The difference being that this gave you a gentler ride around town, maybe at some sacrifice in load capacity, but again, you'll not find coils under a Ford pickup in this time.
$45,000 final price on that 1966 Chevy C10 custom pickup truck. A little bit earlier, Christian Murphy previewed a car that is rolling up on the block right now. It's a 2012 Fisker Karma.
Indeed, these have a hybrid, gasoline and electric. These utilize General Motors' Ecotec 4-cylinder engine, which was their engine, the Saturns and all that sort of stuff. But again, these have electric motors, so the power is nearer 400 when everything is working at the same time.
Henrik Fisker was a famed car designer, did work for Aston Martin, among others, and then went out on his own, got a lot of U.S. government money to be able to build repurpose a factory to build these cars. Solar panel roof. There was a lot of groundbreaking tech and beautiful styling in these. Unfortunately, the company making the batteries for these cars in a specific size and shape went belly up. You couldn't get batteries, you can't run an electric car. And Fisker went under. He has reborn with a new car company and with a new car, and good luck to him.
Now, externally, these are big cars. They ride on a 124-inch wheelbase, which is a foot longer than a GTO, for instance, but they have a very small interior volume. So as a result, the EPA rates these as subcompact cars. If you look inside, there's 4 rather small seats, but again, it's big, but it's actually rated as a subcompact by interior volume.
You think about it, back then they were advertising the fact that this car with the 2 motors, the electric motors, could do 400 horsepower. At that point we thought that's amazing for an electric car to do 400. Now, well, it doesn't even seem half of what some of the cars are putting out.
I want to confuse this with the Tesla. They're similar but not the same. Tesla is completely electric. Karma is a hybrid with gas and electric. And I love the design here, man. I mean, this is a mass-produced car with a solar panel built into the roof. I mean, how much technology and how much science is that? You got to love it. I always say that the best days are now with automotive design. The most brave stuff is is done right now. It's cool.
$29,500 for a 2012 Fisker Karma. Don't forget, just go to Barrett-Jackson.com. That's where you can see the full list of cars yet to cross the block and will be crossing the block during the course of the full auction here in Scottsdale. When we talk about Scottsdale moments, you can go back and look at the historical prices of cars that have crossed the block. Up there right now, a 1957 Mercury Turnpike Cruiser.
Well, this is the 50s most gadget-laden car. Push-button radio, push-button seats, and to me, the most crazy thing of all is above the windshield, these little guys right here. These are fake antennae, but the hole behind them is actually a duct for cooling air into the cockpit. But how crazy, how Jetsons is that? Antennas that don't do anything but look really cool.
Yeah, they are symmetrical, and this Turnpike Cruiser has the breezeway rear window.
And here is the result of that vent. There's actually a little bit of a duct right there inside. Ah, boy, they're moving it away. But trust me, it's kind of cool. I've not seen that feature in any 50s car.
And here's the breezeway. The whole center part of the rear window retracts down behind the seat back, so you can have flow-through ventilation.
Yeah, what a combination with those little vents in front going through there. Very interesting. And once again, you just look at the engineering that was going. Remember we saw that Ford Skyliner just a little bit earlier with both the style and the engineering, and this is another one example in this 57 Turnpike Cruiser.
Now keep in mind, many of these were 4 doors. This is a 2-door. Only 7,291 of these were built.
And another beautiful Detroit two-tone. This time the two-tone has 4 different color breaks down the side between the red and the white.
And it follows through into the interior. The two-tone interior, the way it's been broken up, is not just a couple of little places. That full interior is beautifully done in the way they break up both the white and the red. Look at that back seat, the front seat, beautifully done.
You see this right here. This is a rubber facade around the clock and the tachometer. These are actually flexible, but yeah, these cars had safety features like that, but the tachometer was standard equipment in every Turnpike Cruiser. Very cool, very gadget-laden, nothing more so in the 50s.
The brand is Mercury. There's the head of the god Mercury, and he disguises the keyhole or the trunk opening.
Well, I'll tell you what, for $25,000, that is a pretty spectacular car to be able to drive away in. I love the look of that thing. A little earlier, we previewed a 1969 Plymouth Sport Satellite Custom Coupe, and now it has appeared on the auction block.
The Sport Satellite was a midline item between the Satellite and the GTX and the Roadrunner. Sport Satellite debuted in 1968, and bucket seats were pretty much the key selling point. This one was born in F-Code 318 two-barrel, but now has a 440 under the hood.
So if I understand right, the Sport Satellite was born much like the heavy Chevy, and there was also an Olds Rally 350. It was a car designed to look like performance, but be attractive to the insurance companies and not get surcharged like the Roadrunner or the GTX.
I guess if you add the word sport to anything, it becomes sporty. But yeah, these are the bones of a GTX or a Roadrunner, but again, no Hemis. You can get a 383 4-barrel in one of these, but again, no Hemis or six-packs or anything like that. You had to step into the muscle GTX or Roadrunner to get the real engines.
Yep, this was the insurance premium special because the insurance companies started surcharging cars with big V8s as much as 150%. And that, not high gas prices, that's what killed the muscle car market.
This one does have the flat hood, but Mopar spotters will know that the center item here in the hood, facing the driver, is a little emblem here that will either read 318 or 383. This one's missing, but that right there, if you're a parking lot or a street race spotter, you always look right there to see what engine you have, 318 or 383.
Well, it's funny. A lot of the guys with the 318s would buy 383 emblems. A lot of guys with the 383s that wanted to go to, the Stoplight Grand Prix, they'd get 318 emblems. They did a big business in emblems.
All right, fist bumps for $36,000 for that 1969 Plymouth Sport Satellite Custom Coupe. Away it goes, but guess what? We're down about our last 25 minutes of coverage here at Barrett-Jackson. But out of the McGuire staging lanes, there are still more cars yet to cross the block. So trust me, you don't want to leave. There's always something new and exciting yet to be seen. Welcome back to the Barrett-Jackson Collector Car Auction here in Scottsdale, Arizona, the 50th anniversary celebration. And boy, what a day it's been so far. All kinds of great stuff going across the block. Still nice stuff. We got a 1969 Camaro in butternut yellow.
Well, the thing with these is that there were 243,000 Camaros built in 1969, a really big number. But there's no way to know what engine it came with except for going to the VIN. We see 124, but that means V8, but it doesn't say which one. But that said, it's got a 350 in it now, which is okay. Turbo 400 automatic transmission, 3-speed, not an overdrive, but that's okay. I love the cowl hood. It's a pretty typical Friday night cruise machine.
Typical cruise machine, but not a typical color, which I think suits the car really well, personally.
Yeah, colors are always those personal things. We always joke about resale red being such a perfect color. Butternut yellow, yeah, it's gonna. You either like it or you don't. You want something bolder. If you change that color, no harm, no foul. But if you like it, keep it. That's always great. Well, we've got so many great collections that we're seeing crossing the block this week here at Barrett-Jackson, and Mike Joyce found one that we're going to see cross the block tomorrow. That's very cool.
General Motors has brought 13 special cars from the GM Heritage Collection to Barrett-Jackson. These two 1LE Camaros and this Corvette will sell on Wednesday. Then on Super Saturday, these 10 cars will all come to the block sequentially. They include 2019 Driver's Edition Corvettes signed by Corvette racers including Ollie Gavin and Tommy Milner. Then there are mid-engine 2020 Corvettes. These cars all have between 100 and 1,000 miles on them. They've been used at SEMA for display or at various races or Bloomington Gold or the Woodward Cruise. But the last two to sell, they are something special. They're Cadillacs, a CT4 and a CT5, both with Blackwing engines and 6-speed manual transmissions. Likely the last straight drive Cadillacs you'll ever be able to buy. These are going to rock the block.
Well, thanks, Mike. GM thought those were special enough to put away, and now they're going to be crossing the block tomorrow here at Barrett-Jackson. So you're going to make sure that you watch that. And by the way, trying to get your hands on a new Blackwing Cadillac is pretty hard, so that's the way to go. $35,000 the price for that 1950 Ford F1 custom pickup truck. Mustang time. We got a 1965 Mustang. This is a Rangoon Red Edition.
Well, indeed, this is kind of special. This is what we call a 64.5 or an early production Mustang. To get ahead of demand, Ford started building these Mustangs during the 1964 model year. And anything built between March 64 and August 17th, 64, we call a 64.5. They're different in many ways. This one has the D code 289 4-barrel, which ordinarily would be an A code. Well, not in the early mode. But again, it's a nice restoration with a little bit of modification happening, but 4-speed manual transmission, factory stuff, and this is where it all started, man. The pony car revolution started right here.
Yeah, this is interesting. According to the consignor, it was actually built on April 21st, 1964, which is right after the production began. So this is very early. Interesting that they've modified it, because I think this is one of those special Mustangs. You're so early in the production run, I'd love to see it dead stock.
Now, this does have a 4-speed and a 289, but it does not have the 9-inch rear axle found in a K code 271 horse. These had the 8-inch, which is a pretty rugged piece. And again, the 8-inch refers to the 8-inch diameter ring gear, not the 9. Strong stuff, but it's original and it hasn't been messed with. That's okay.
So a great thing about being out in the staging lanes is meeting the sellers. There are all kinds. Some people, dealers doing this for a living. Others, like this, 20-plus year ownership on this car. And I was looking at the notes earlier. They're all handwritten. Everything that's ever been done to this car over the past 20 years is handwritten on a notepad, kind of like Max here, with everything, including a more recent appraisal.
Yeah, Provenance. It's not a city in Rhode Island. It's much more than that.
And let's go back to the point, it's your car, do what you want with it. Obviously, this owner did certain things, loved the car, enjoyed the car, and now it's going off to a new owner. $26,000 for that 1964 and a half Mustang. Congratulations. Up on the block right now, a 1982 Corvette Collector's Edition.
Well, it's a collector's edition because it's the end of the line for the C3. It had a special paint job, and they introduced a new engine that was going to be in the next Corvette, the Crossfire fuel-injected V8, which, got a lot of flack, but really, it's kind of cool, I think. Dual throttle body fuel injection that feeds the other side of the engine, sort of crossing over one another. It's a little complicated to keep tuned, but pretty neat technology.
Indeed, some retro touches here. Look at the 67 style bolt-on wheels, the knockoff type wheels. That's absolutely intentional. And keep in mind that the collector's edition 1982 is the only time this generation Corvette got hinges and struts and an opening hatchback. A standard non-collector edition Corvette in 82 would not have that feature. So it's a weird thing. Chevrolet held this for the very end, and there she blows.
And don't look for a 1983 Corvette. They don't technically exist. There were Corvettes that were built in 83, but they transitioned from this version to the C4, and as a result, you have no 1983 Corvettes.
You also didn't have convertibles due to insurance mandates and things for several years, but you do have a lot of T-tops, and I like this one a lot because it's just really flush with the roofline. It really doesn't disturb the lines of the cars at all, and it's kind of a mirrored, retro 70s finish. People liked mirrored things in the 70s and 80s to do things off of, or, anyway.
The mirror ball up on the roof.
$25,000 for a 1982 Corvette Collector's Edition. They have just 11,000 miles on the odometer for this very special car. All right, we're down to our last 15 minutes here of our Barrett-Jackson coverage on FYI, but every minute is worthwhile, so you're going to want to stick around for the end.
Happy 50th anniversary, Barrett-Jackson. You guys just bring the best people together with the excitement of not only buying a new car, but also selling a new car. You guys rock.
Yeah, we sometimes forget there's excitement on both ends of that, right? When you're selling a car, no reserve, you don't know what it's going to sell for. It could be a heart-stopping moment. And it can also be ecstasy when it finally gets the big number you wanted. Up on the block right now, a 1995 Ford Mustang. It's a GT convertible, $23,000 the current bid.
So when I first saw this thing, I thought for sure it was going to be a repaint, but this isn't. This is the original sapphire blue color. Only 30,000 miles on this car, a GT 5-speed. So cool color, good options, great car.
And this is the first of the Mustangs to be built entirely, Mustang convertibles to be built entirely at Ford instead of making a trip to a conversion facility.
Only 30,000 miles, and it just hammered sold at $23,000. And we're going to check in with Christian Murphy one last time.
Thank you very much, Rick. We are down here on the side of the block. I'm here with the chiefs who run the whole shebang. Craig Jackson, Chairman and CEO of Barrett Jackson. Steve Davis, the President. Fellas, there is never a dull moment here in the auction arena. Craig was just showing me here a picture of the national anthem, and the room was packed. The community has absolutely come out in force.
Amazing, isn't it?
Has this surprised you? I mean, look at that. That is full.
Full. First thing, coming out of the gate, it's an omen. What this place is going to be like the next few days is going to be absolutely spectacular.
So by the end of the week, you really think this house is going to be full?
To the rafters. But, you know, you feel the breeze blowing through here. The way we're moving the air around, everybody feels good.
Steve, some interesting top sellers today. Great day for collectors to get into the business. But I might challenge you here. Top seller was not actually a vehicle today. Greyhound sign.
Greyhound sign.
Unbelievable, huh?
The automobilia segment of Barrett Jackson is indicative of the whole hobby. People are buying these cars. They figured out, I'm going to put something really cool together. I need something for my garage to go on the walls.
It's all part of the ecosystem,
Magic,
isn't it?
Absolutely.
It is. That globe, I had to go over and correct Mike real quick because he thought it was a typo. I'm like, no, that's what it's sold for.
Gentlemen, looking forward to the rest of the week tomorrow. I assume, Steve, we're going to take it up just a little gear.
We're gonna turn up the volume. We're gonna dial up the quality, and we're gonna let this group tell us how good it is, because they're the ultimate judge, and they bid and we react.
Yep.
What does tomorrow look like, Craig? Last word, and let's go.
I think it's going to be just the start of what is going to be the most spectacular run ever in the history of Barrett Jackson.
You heard it from the head honcho. Rick, we're going to throw it back up to you, my friend.
All right, thanks, Ian. Yeah, it's really interesting to think that Greyhound sign was the top seller of the day at almost $150,000. And as I said earlier, my understanding is they've got some more automobilia that's going to be crossing the auction block. It sells before we get to the cars. That's going to bring well over $100,000. It's absolutely going to be amazing before it's all said and done. Over the block right now, we got a 1989 Chevy 1500 custom pickup truck.
Well, this truck shows how long-lived and versatile the GMT 400 platform is, because we have a 1989 truck, a very early version, but they were able to bolt on a 2000 Cadillac Escalade nose to it, so a luxury car. They were trying out the Cadillac Escalade for a year before doing their full version, say in 2002, and even in the back, they got a DeVille rear taillight section, which is a really cool touch. I have not seen that before with the Cadillac Escalade front end.
Yeah, this is a high rider for sure. I mean, in some states it's true that the bumper being so high might be a problem for registration, but I find that for the most part it depends on what you just did if you're having a discussion with a police officer or not. So if you drive normally, it's usually not an issue. That's my excuse. I love that fleet side body. This is a fiberglass piece, this one here. Again, I think it's an aftermarket item because it has the custom tail. That's not hand done, so it's probably an aftermarket. But again, there's a whole universe of aftermarket cabs, doors, fenders, beds. Some of it's reproduction, some of it's custom. But it's a good time to own a pickup truck. All kinds of help from the aftermarket.
Yeah, it's really cool up front. If we can get a chance to get the camera back up there, they've actually put a Cadillac custom grille on the front. You know, and those Cadillac tail lights in the back. Those tail lights, they came out of a Cadillac, and then the grille up front from a Cadillac. So got a lot of interesting touches.
Well, it's actually very easy to do because it all bolts right on the entire front clip. That's how interchangeable everything is. But also up front, I can see they tried to protect a little bit. They have skid plates. There's a lot of, well, off-roadiness to this thing, even though it looks like a luxury pickup truck.
I'll tell you what, it just sold for $13,000 here at Barrett Jackson. All right, check out our top sellers for the day. Turns out we've got a three-way tie for number 3. Starts off with this Ford Bronco Custom 4x4. It sold for $65,000. What did it tie with? Well, how about a custom Camaro? Had all kinds of documentation, but also all kinds of great work that had been done to it. This also sold for $65,000. And a Lincoln that came out of nowhere to me, this one, yeah, it's just another Lincoln Continental, but it used to be owned by Roy Rogers, and it too sold for $65,000. Now that's the three-way tie for third. Second place belongs to this Pontiac GTO. Tons of documentation that came along with this. Hammered sold at $70,000. But the number one sale of the day, a hot rod, a Model A Custom, $73,000. That color is called Sunset Pearl Orange. It's got an LS1 engine. As we talked about earlier, it's not just bits and pieces, it's all the right bits and pieces put together just the right way. That's our top 5 sales. Once again, $73,000, the top sale today, and we know that when it's all over tomorrow, that $73,000 is going to be just the entry fee to get in the door. Up in the block now, we've got a 1999 Mercedes-Benz S500 Grand Edition.
Now, this was the end of the line of the 140 chassis Mercedes, and they reportedly spent $1 billion developing this chassis. It's the last of that bank vault right quality, which they talk about that because when you open the doors, it makes a heck of a thunk when you close it. That quality, you just don't get anymore.
And the last car on the block this
Well, I'll tell you what, $10,000, that's what it went for. You know, we talk about the fact that there are deals to be had. You just have to shop at the right time here at Barrett-Jackson, and that's one of them. And this is the last car we're going to see up on the block for our FYI coverage here on Tuesday. It's up on the block right now, and this is a 1973 Ford Ranchero GT pickup.
Well, this is kind of special. This is a 4-speed manual-equipped Ranchero. I'm not sure if that's factory stuff, but if it is, it's a pretty rare bird. 351 Cleveland engine with an Edelbrock 4-barrel Edelbrock intake. But you know, it's a lot of custom, but it's a rare car if it's a 4-speed.
And it looks like it was a factory AC car. At least it has the giant old AC compressor on it. The nose kind of reminds me of the Starsky and Hutch cars of the similar year.
Well, yeah, speaking of which, another couple of years, there's 2 of those in the auction. We'll see those, the Starsky and Hutch, the tomato cars.
Well, that's going to do it today for our 6 hours of coverage from Scottsdale, but we will be back tomorrow for another 6 hours. Auction action right here on FYI. In fact, you're not going to want to miss a minute of it. So, for Mike Joy, Steve Magnante, Tyler Hoover, April Rose, Christian Murphy, I'm Rick DeBrule. Thanks for riding along with us today as we help to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Barrett-Jackson.